So anyway, like with last time, we are gonna be, just like I said, we're gonna be doing the Tatarigoroshi stream, post chapter discussion. We're gonna be talking about what the hell's been going on in Higurashi Tatarigoroshi. I'm gonna be talking about my theories, my thoughts on it. We're gonna kind of re-summarize everything that happened in chapter 3, and then we're gonna give my final thoughts and opinions. So let me get my guest on today, who's going to be Billy. He goes by Greycart here on Twitch. I can actually do this, I believe. No, I can't. Let me link to his Twitch channel here. Alright. So if you want to check him out, that's his channel. And then same here for Kick, if you want to watch it. Or if you want to check out his channel, his stuff, he also streams there. But alright, let me go ahead and get in the call with him, and then we'll go from there.
Hello.
All right. So looks like we're good to go.
Sweet. Well, Tatarigoroshi, huh? What a game.
Dude, what a fucking chapter this was. Holy
this one
fuck.
was so fun to listen in again, because people who have watched these discussions already know, but I've finished, and this has been kind of a way for me to reread the series without actually having to sit down and read it myself.
Yeah.
So getting to hear your reactions and watch you play through parts that I knew was coming up, that was just it's been great.
Yeah, I can imagine. Because it's been, like I said, it was something. Also, I forgot to mention, but for those of you who are going to be watching this later on YouTube, for those of you watching it live, like, we finished Tatarigoroshi like before, on Christmas, actually. On Christmas Day, on the 25th, was when we finished Tatarigoroshi, which was quite something.
What a day.
For those of you watching on YouTube, it's probably going to be a little weird. At least, sorry, it won't be weird, release schedule wise, because I mean, these streams have been going up just every week essentially for Tatarigoroshi, and it's crazy how, like, there was still enough of a backlog on YouTube that I could like it's been about it's been about two weeks. Has it been 2 weeks since December the 25th? Yes, it's been, well, this is the 3rd week. It's been almost a month since we've been done with the series, with the chapter, I mean. And like, I still have videos to go, like, just enough spares. But anyway, Tatarigoroshi is fucking something. It was such a crazy chapter. It started off very wholesome, and then it escalated around the same, like, you know, point in time as the other chapters, and then, like, it leaves you with an ending that you're just like, who really died that day? To use my phrase from last time, because that shit happened in Tatarigoroshi as well, where it's like, who really died that day, and who came back? Because you don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and that's one of the things that... Oh, go ahead.
No, Tatarigoroshi was just really good. A very, very, very good chapter.
There are some points that we'll touch on when we get deeper into the recap, but yeah, there's a lot of, like, in 1 and 2, they kind of show you that it's going to be mostly the same, like, because it revolves around the Watanagashi festival. It kind of feels like they're showing you the same scenes but with different context.
Right.
So it's like, oh, well, you know, what would happen if they went to this store instead of that store, or, you know, things like that. And so you get into this, like, false sense of security with 3, and you're like, we're doing slice of life stuff. I know exactly how this is going to play out. There's going to be some scenes with Satoko, and then it just completely goes off the rails, around the midway point. And that's one of the things, like, I think I mentioned it to you privately, but 3 was the one that, like, I was already invested in reading 1, like, by the time I finished 2, but 3 was the point where I just basically put everything else down that I was playing at the time and I just read Higurashi. That's all I wanted to do. So it got its hooks in me pretty good.
Yeah, no, and I can see why. Like the second he was once he got to the 1500 seconds, you're like, I gotta see what the hell this is all about.
You got the funky music playing. You got the inverted colors.
Yeah. it was fucking something. But all right, I guess we can get started. Because I did have a few theories about like what the hell was going on here as well. It's such a crazy fucking chapter. Like I still can't believe it.
It's so hard to believe. And then of course like the stinger at the end, which we'll get to, that opens up so many other like cans of worms, that it's like some things that you may have been forming theories in the middle of the story, and that just either validated them or completely threw them out the window, or there's so many other things to consider now.
Right. God damn.
Well, if we want to get into it, I mean, one of the crazier parts was actually straight up the intro, like the intro scene, because we're used to a murder happening like at the Watanagashi festival.
Yeah.
But in the prologue scene, we open with somebody, they're riding through town, they're talking to their neighbors. Someone mentions a stench, so he tries to pull whatever it is out of the gutter, and we find a body. And that cold cut on the opening there.
Yeah.
And that was already like because we were expecting murders to happen later in the story. What was your first impression of that?
See, because like in I'm trying to remember what the murder description for chapter 1 and 2 was, because again it's been a bit. Timeline wise, it's been about 3 months, just about 3 or 4 months since I started Higurashi, and it's been about like a month and a half between each chapter. But yeah, it makes you think like, okay, well, with chapter 1 and 2, it has to have been someone in the village, and then as you play along, you're like, okay, well, it has to be like a character, probably, right? They're probably finding the body of one of the characters or someone that we've interacted with. Maybe that's what's going on. And in chapter 3, it happens in the city, and I believe it happens like in like some prefecture that's like, like an hour away or something, right? It doesn't happen in the little like town that's right below the mountain. So it makes you wonder like who the fuck got murdered? Like because it kind of became like a reality show for a little bit, or like CSI for a moment, as we just start getting like cops show up and like detectives or whatever, and they start talking about like what happened to this person, and it makes you wonder like, okay, well, if this isn't someone from the village, it's probably someone who either left the village or someone that the S group just got their hands on. Or at least that's what went through my mind.
Okay.
And then as like the story goes on, you kind of probably get some implication as to like who it could have been, or who I think it might have been. But yeah, it was there's a
tip later on that kind of tells you not who did it, but like who the body was that they had discovered.
Yeah.
But that was a wild intro, because like again, we normally start with like slice of life stuff, barring the very first opening chapter, because that was also like somebody getting beaten to death with a bat.
Yeah, and then it's just a callback to the ending. Exactly.
Yeah. Yep. But that's basically like that was it for the prologue. The opening scene is more slice of life stuff, but we open up on the club comparing their bentos. Keiichi badmouths Curry, which is a very big mistake because Chie's in the room and she basically kills him. And then Tatarigoroshi ends.
Yeah, no, that's it. It was a very short chapter, but it took us forever to get to this point. Like the timeline for that one ended immediately.
Because everyone's arguing over their bentos. Mion proposes that they should make this into a club activity, of course, like she always does. But they're like, okay, we're not going to do today's bentos because we've already seen them. But you're going to go home, you're going to make one, and you're going to bring one tomorrow. And then we're going to compare. So Keiichi's like, I got this. You guys can't even compare.
I'm going to make the best goddamn bento.
He gets home and completely crumbles because he has no idea how to cook.
Dude, reading him trying to cook fucking killed me inside.
It's like, so funny.
I mean, I get it, right? He's like 14, 15. You know, he knows how, like we've been told that he's an idiot, that the extent of his cooking knowledge is instant ramen, specifically ginger pork. But
Yep.
it's still like, because like when I was his age, like I was cooking for myself at that point. Like whenever I would get home from school. So I was like, how has he not learned to cook? And then just seeing him fuck up, like hearing about the miso paste one, like I've never cooked miso soup. I actually bought some recently, but just seeing him like just grab a fuck ton of it and just dump it in, and then it doesn't he burn it?
Yeah, he does.
Yeah. So it's like, how the fuck do you burn miso?
Yeah, he's just an idiot when it comes to cooking.
Oh, big time. God.
But thankfully, even though he almost burns his house down, Satoko and Rika were coming to hang out with him, and so they show up just in the nick of time. They get the fire under control, and Satoko feels so bad for Keiichi being like so bad at cooking that she's like, I'm just gonna make dinner for us. And so she makes dinner for the three of them. While she's doing that, Keiichi gets to have like a little bit of a heart-to-heart with Rika about like about Satoko, and like because he feels like he hasn't really gotten close with her. He learns some things about Satoshi, and that Satoko used to call him Nini. But when they talk to Satoko about it, she doesn't really like clam up. She just kind of gets like a little sad, and then she's like, "Yeah, he ran away."
Yeah, quote unquote.
And quote unquote. And that's basically where they leave it. They kind of hang out for a little bit. Keiichi comments on how much fun it is just to hang out with his friends, and then they head home for the night.
Yeah, and then he got to keep the leftovers. He
did, yeah, true, yep. And I think this was great because it's setting up some stuff about characters that we had little exposure with, because 1 and 2 were obviously very Rena and Mion focused, or Smion, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
Because who's who? But yeah, this was fun getting to explore like this side of Satoko, because we only know her as the goblin up until now, and it's like, oh no, she's a person with actual human emotions. She's not just a goblin.
She's actually nice. She's just a little girl that has, that likes to do cute things. And yeah, so like that's something that I noticed, like, as time went on. I'm like, okay, so chapter 1 was all focused mainly on one character. Chapter 2 was focused mainly on 2 characters. This one's going to be probably just focused on 1 character. That, and like, if you're buying these online, I guess they don't have like a generic poster for all of these, right? Like if you look at like the image on screen, this is just like the cover of When They Cry, right? But if you buy this on like GOG or Steam, like each chapter is gonna have like the character that's associated with that chapter for the most part. First one being Rena, then it's Mion, then it's goddamn, I'm blanking on her name already. Not Rika. Satoko. Sorry, Satoko. Yeah, and then chapter 4 is Rika, right?
Yep.
And so it's interesting seeing this. Then, and if you recall from the post, like the little omake like character like thoughts and theories, chapter 4 was originally supposed to star Shion as the protagonist, but if you end up looking through the catalog of all 8 chapters, Shion is the protagonist of chapter 5 instead, because 4 apparently wasn't supposed to be a thing, or that 5 was supposed to be 4, which is really interesting, but we'll get to that later. But yeah, like the game kind of spoiled all this stuff a little bit. At least like the retailers kind of spoil this a little bit. But it is really cool that you get to see more of Satoko, because going into it, like I remember a lot of people being like, oh, I don't like Satoko, she's like annoying. But then you get to this chapter and you're like, oh, she's actually like really sweet. She's just like, she does this stuff for attention, right?
By the end of this, how could you dislike Satoko, right?
Well,
God. I was also going to comment too about how, so the image you have up on your stream, that is the cover for Onikakushi, the original Onikakushi.
Yeah.
And funny enough, they did have different covers for the next 3 chapters, but they're all Rena.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Just all Rena.
I think I've seen that. I think I've seen some of the other, like, the Japanese covers.
Yeah,
They're just different angles of Rena. I think one of
yeah. So
them is
like
like her in the moonlight or some shit.
two is like her. It's just like a white background with her smiling, which is it's also like a CG. It's not a sprite we ever see in the game.
Oh,
Um,
God, imagine
these
that would have been like the laziest thing ever. It's just like Rena's, like, just her face. Sorry, not sorry, Rena's face, yeah, and then it's just like Higurashi, and then Tatarigoroshi or Watanagashi or any of the others, and then there you go. But it's a comic hit. But I get it. It's like it's an indie release, so it can't be, too harsh on the guy.
Sorry, she's it's a white background and she's holding her axe, but it is some original Ryukishi art that's not in the games, which is kind of cool.
Here, I can put it on screen.
Tatarigoroshi is when they kind of start to get into like there becomes a consistent box art style after like from Tatarigoroshi onward, which is this little I'm sending them to you now. It's this like cross stripe in the bottom right corner. But this one is Rena with her axe in her like casual outfit.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. And yeah, it's in front of the moon. But then the fourth one, weirdly enough, is which I don't think it's much of a spoiler because you're about to start it anyway, but it's just her standing in front of the sun, also with her axe and her casual outfit. So it's almost like it feels like it was intended to make us like think that we are like this is Rena's story, right?
But she's more like a mascot or something.
Yeah. Although I will say I did learn I learned two pieces of interesting like trivia, I guess. And that is that one, Rena was during the development of the question arcs anyway, Rena was the most popular character, so this kind of makes sense,
Really?
Put her on the cover and it'll sell. Yeah. Really,
Rena,
yeah.
of all things? Not Rika at all?
No, it was Rena. And then Rika and Satoko eventually got a lot of merch. So they became like kind of like a stand-in for Rena in terms of popularity, but like together, because they live together, So
yeah.
And then finally, when they actually did like a proper popularity poll, Mion ended up getting the top spot for Higurashi. So it seems like people change their taste with time, I guess.
Yeah, I mean that truly caught me off guard. I was not expecting any of that. I really thought it was just gonna be Rika the whole time, but I guess maybe because we spend most of our time with Rena in the first game, and then it wasn't until like Watanagashi came out.
Right. The other thing that I learned that was fairly interesting, and this actually is pertinent to specifically Tatarigoroshi, was that so we talked about it before, but basically Himatsubushi was I won't say an accident, but it was kind of like Ryukishi felt particularly busy and stressed at his day job.
Yeah.
And the reason why we didn't get Meakashi, the Shion chapter right after Tatarigoroshi, was specifically because he felt like he couldn't finish it in time for Comiket. But the other reason he felt insanely pressured to release at the next Comiket was because BT, which was Ryukishi's best friend and programmer, and like he did a lot of technical work on the series, he suggested, hey, let's release Onikakashi for free. And if we do that, maybe more people will get into it. They'll come to the Comiket, they'll buy the new disc, and then we can just include all of the arcs, on the disc, which is great. That's how it turned out. But what they didn't know, and it was never, nobody really looked into it. But because I have a personal theory about it, but basically the version of the demo that went up accidentally had the data for Watanagashi and Tatarigoroshi. So it spread like wildfire, and people got really into it, and that's kind of what catapulted the popularity. And so that's also another pressure point for him to kind of like
really like get it done.
Back, and he's like, I'm going to do a small chapter. We'll do this chapter 4, and then we'll get on with it.
So your theory is that the bestie Did
Yes,
what?
yeah.
Yeah.
Because BT was the like I said, I think he was the programmer, like the main developer,
Mm.
and he would have known that, at least I feel like he would have known that the files were still there.
Yeah.
Because, and the reason I think that is because they weren't in like an accessible format. They were in, like, you had to rename some files to get them to work and then point
Mm.
to the right folder or something like that.
Yeah.
But it screams to me that he knew what he was doing, because he could have just deleted them.
Right.
But he went out of his way to make it so that you had to do a little work to get to access to that content. And then, of course, as soon as somebody figured that out, it was over.
It just spread through 8chan. It's like, you guys gotta play this game. I'm gonna upload the entire thing to Mediafire right now.
Exactly. But so yeah, I think that BT was urging him to do this because he knew that, like, this, accident, quote unquote, would catapult the series' popularity, even if it meant losing a little bit of money for the first 3 chapters. And it did. They went from like hundreds of sales to hundreds of thousands of sales.
Insane.
Pretty much immediately. Yeah.
That's insane. That's really fucking cool.
And it just, to me, that kind of speaks more to the testament of like how big of a cliffhanger you're left off on in Tatarigoroshi.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
like,
dude. Have you fucking read the chapter?
You need to know.
Have you seen what like who really died that day?
But yeah, no, just some interesting history that I have learned since our last discussion video.
That's insane lore. New Ryukakushi lore just like dropped over this like little hiatus.
It's true. No, I think it's been out there. I just I hadn't read anything. Like I really only I tried to stay away from interviews initially, just because I don't want any details to slip about any games that I have in my backlog. Because I'm almost done with Umineko at this point. I'm on book 7, which that's a whole other discussion. But I can't wait for you to. That's gonna break you. That's gonna absolutely destroy you.
Oh no. We're gonna have sassy Victorian women and vampires, I think. I mean, they have fangs, but I don't know if those are just like anime fangs or real fangs.
I don't know. I've never read the series before.
That's true. Okay.
All right. So back on track. Next part is actually pretty short. It's basically just the quote unquote slice of life stuff.
Yeah, that's one thing that this chapter started doing. Which now that you provided that little backstory, it makes a lot of sense why he did a lot of the things that he did, at least with the chapter breakups in this game. Because traditionally, chapter 1 and 2, all the sub-chapters would usually be broken down into a day and night cycle. You would have the day part, a transition, night, like whatever might happen at night. Even if it's just Keiichi, like as soon as Keiichi gets home, that's usually when we would transition to the evening or afternoon or night. And Keiichi would then do whatever it is that he does, even if it's just like him thinking about the day or him being like, oh, I gotta do my homework or whatever, or take a bath. Like we'd have that be the second part of the chapter. It would still be like 30-40 minutes. And then the chapter would end and it would start again the following morning. But with Tatarigoroshi, we started getting breaks in that cycle where now, instead of a chapter being in that format, sometimes you would, like, some chapters would still be broken down that way, but you would have others that would just be, say, the daytime section and then end of chapter. It would be like 40 minutes, end of chapter. Then you would have the nighttime section, that thing's like 30 minutes. And then there's a transition into the following day in the morning. For example, he started fucking around with it, and it was throwing me off a lot. But anyway,
it's just another way that tries to break that false sense of security. And it's not earth shattering, right? Like it's just chapter markers, but it's that it's like something's off. Something feels weird. And there's even there's points too where it's like multi-day, like. You get multiple scenes, or they just skip over, they gloss over certain unimportant parts.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're on Thursday or something, and suddenly it's Friday, or suddenly it's like Saturday, right?
Hmm.
So that, yeah, just messing with the flow of the story was interesting. But this part was, and I don't have hard chapter markers. I'm going solely based on the recaps, like paragraph separation. But
Yeah.
this next part was all the slice of life segments, where Keiichi and Satoko become closer.
Mhm.
And they get close enough that Satoko starts calling him Mimi, which starts making Keiichi think about, am I just a replacement brother for this
Mhm.
chick? And yeah, he just starts thinking about his relationship with Satoko a little more considerably than
Right, the
or
before.
considerately. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm going through the backlog real quick, just for Tatarigoroshi. Because yeah, it's like we did have chapter 1, which was just all that, right? Chapter 1 and 2 was just a bunch of the slice of life stuff with just them getting closer for sure. That's when they have the the cooking event. They're like, well, Keiichi still did his best. You can feel like heart and soul poured into his meal. You can feel the love, right, in his meal. And then I believe it was Satoko and Rika that didn't have that had lunches borrowed from like the two kids that like them. And then we had to we as Keiichi had to prove that those lunches were stolen, that they weren't correct. And then, they're like, all right, well, looks like they're going to get punished. And then Keiichi feels bad. He's like, well, actually, Satoko made my lunch. So I feel like
Yep.
all three of us should go. And then I believe it's just Rika and Satoko end up going instead. Because they're like, Keiichi, if you go, you will die.
Yeah, no, there was a point too. One of the sweeter points was like, everyone was clowning on Keiichi's lunch, and even Satoko is joining in, but she can tell it's like it's hurting her.
Yeah.
Or he can tell that it's
Yeah.
hurting her. Even to make fun of her own meal. And so he like starts vehemently defending it without saying that it's Satoko's at first.
Right.
And she's like, you can tell that even though she's still like laughing and acting like a little goblin, that she's like, she still appreciates the sentiment.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, he's acting like an older brother.
Exactly. Yep. So after the majority of the slice of life stuff, where it's mainly just them getting closer, we're at a point now where they have a pretty like solid relationship, right? Even more so than the past couple of games. So there's one point where Satoko calls Keiichi, and she's like, dude, you got to get down here. The club members are in a fight at the Okinomiya Stadium.
Yeah.
And he's like, huh? And so, what does he grab? Is it like not a shovel?
He grabs a golf club.
Golf club. That's right. Yeah.
She's like, bring something like sturdy. He's like a baseball bat, and she's like, yeah, exactly. Bring like a baseball bat. And he's like, wait, shit. I can't seem to find mine. Will a golf club be okay? And she's like, that's perfect. And he's like, what the fuck is going on at this place? Because she's like, oh man, we're getting creamed out here. Like Shion got beat, or Mion got beat, and he's like, what? What do you mean she got beat? It's fucking hilarious. And I thought to myself, is this gonna be like, when I fucking saw this, when I was reading this in my head, the first thing that came up was, is this gonna be a fucking baseball match? Are we about to they're definitely talking about a baseball game, right? There's no way they got into like a gang fight with a bunch of elementary school students. It has to be a baseball game, right?
I mean, you read Watanagashi, you know about Smion.
Right, but even still, like, what else did they play in Japan sports wise? Like, in the 80s, American football wasn't a popular sport like it is now in Japan, or like it was at least in the late 90s, mid 2000s. The other would be basketball, but you don't really like get into fights much in basketball compared to baseball. And then the last option was either it's not going to be golf, so it has to be like baseball. So that immediately ran through my head, and I didn't want to say anything. I don't remember if I did say anything, but I was like, is it going to be fucking baseball? And then we show up,
and it's baseball.
And Keiichi's like runs into the stadium swinging, yelling, holding his baseball bat, his golf club. And then everyone turns and looks at him like he's a fucking idiot. while there's a guy on the pitch, on the mound, like getting ready to pitch, and then everyone comes up to him and they're like, Keiichi, what the fuck are you doing? Why did you bring a baseball bat? Or why didn't you bring a baseball bat?
It's great. It's perfectly Keiichi.
Yeah.
When
So
he gets there, they finally explain to him, like, properly, because clearly Satoko was panicked on the phone, and she was like, just get down here, come on.
Yeah.
But they properly explain it, and they're like, listen, the other team, it's a practice game, but they're bringing out their star pitcher, and we're terrified of that dude. You got to take care of him, please. Yeah. And Keiichi's like, well, I'm definitely not hitting that, not with a golf club. So how am I going to do this? And we eventually meet. This is not my nickname for him, but Cake Fucker Kamada.
What? What? Who the fuck calls him that?
Do you not remember the scene?
Oh, wait, like, you're talking about the pitcher. You're talking about the pitcher. Okay. I thought you were talking about the coach, because we meet him first, then the pitcher.
Oh, the recap I'm reading says we meet the coach after the game.
No, I'm pretty sure we meet the coach first.
Because even though I got the game up.
You're bringing it up right now. You're like, I gotta check. No, I mean, I can double check the VOD. I could have sworn it was I could have sworn we met the coach first. But let me just bring it up here. Suck. Yeah, because like you said, I'm pretty sure like we did meet the coach first, but that doesn't happen until well we get closer to him later on. But let's see, because we arrive and then like we have like Rika meets us at like the station, and then she takes us to the baseball field, and then there we meet with the coach. Like Rika's like, oh, Keiichi-kun's here. Satoko, Keiichi-kun's here. Like, you're late, right? And then that's when the coach shows up. And when I saw him, I was like, who the fuck?
What is this sprite?
Yeah, that's like when you mentioned Cake Fucker, I was like, wait, what? And I was trying to remember if he ever talked about like cake, but no, but yeah. So the pitcher, just to clarify, the pitcher that they brought in for the enemy team, like the guy just joined the match. Like it's summer break, I believe, isn't it? Mm-hmm. No. Yeah,
well, I think it's an off-season game.
It's an off-season game, right? Because it was a practice match, and this guy was just there because it was like his elementary school back in the day. So this dude's like in middle school, I think, or in high school, and he's headed for like essentially the equivalent of the big leagues in Japanese like baseball, right? Like it was called like the Hoishin something, unless it was just like the Hoishin, which means like star or something. Anyway, he's like a literal like ace pitcher. Like he's like after high school, he's probably gonna go to like university to study sports and then like get into like the major leagues, right? Or just go straight to the major leagues, or the Japanese league at least. So they have this guy just appear out of nowhere, and he's playing against fifth graders. Well, like no, he's playing against children for the most part. Like Keiichi, Rika, and like Mion are like the only like elder, kids at this fucking field. Everyone else is like 7, and you have this fucker just striking everyone out, taking it super fucking seriously.
And that's kind of when that's where we had left off with the recap, was like people were explaining the plan to Keiichi about, we need you to take care of him. And so Keiichi's like pretty sure he's not going to be able to deal with this guy's pitches. So he tries to do it in a roundabout way. He goes to the bathroom, and we meet Kamada, like face to face, at least anyway, instead of just hearing about him. And Keiichi learns really quickly that he has a weakness, and that weakness is that he's horny for sweets for some reason. He keeps comparing them to like
to women,
like different fashion trends, like Gothic Lolita, and it's real weird It's real creepy.
Yeah.
But he's like, okay, this is clearly a weakness. How can I exploit this? And then he remembers, oh, I know that I can get tickets to Angel Mort for their tasting day.
Yeah.
And so he's like, he tells him, hey, if you throw the match, hey, and he just completely crumbles at the idea of getting to sample a bunch of different desserts. So,
well, first he's insulted, and then it isn't until Keiichi proves that he's a fucking like sick fuck like him that he's like, we're brothers in arms, like we're birds of a
soul
feather.
Brothers.
Yeah. Soul brothers. It's so fucking dumb. I think Keiichi describes like how he feels when licking like the cream off of a strawberry on a shortcake. Yeah. And I'm like, come on, Keiichi, what the fuck are you doing?
A lot of this was censored in the console release of the game, where they either skip certain scenes entirely or they just really tone it down. And they basically, like, I forget exactly how he solves it, but it's more or less the same, or he invites him to Angel Mort.
Yeah, I think someone warned me about that, like in the chat on Twitch. They were like, "Oh, good luck in the bathroom." I'm like, "Why?" It's like, "How censored is your game?" I'm like, "I have it set to 0." He's like, "Good luck." I'm like, okay. I guess we're getting to Keiichi pitching, or well, catching maybe. And then no, we get to hearing, like, I think at some point I'm like, I'm not reading some of this. You can read it.
You guys can read it.
You can read it.
Right back.
I don't want my voice to ever be clipped out and then have this stuff like read.
Don't put this out of context.
Yeah, I don't want some AI to steal my voice in the future and then have those specific lines ready to go.
So we eventually break through with we have a breakthrough with Kamada. We throw the game, or he throws the game for us.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much a done deal. I think Satoko gets the final hit, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Keiichi gets walked. And the entire time they're like, oh, like you have the spectators being like, oh, it's that guy that came here with a baseball bat. And they're like, why do you, or sorry, they came here with a golf club. Why did he come here with a golf club? And they're like, what, has anyone heard of this kid? And they're like, no. Wait, what's his name? Like Mayabara Keiichi. And then apparently, like, I think someone says, I heard a rumor that he used to be really good at baseball and then he fucking quit and he left. He was so good, he didn't even want to go for like the World Series, that he just like started golfing instead. And then
that's when he came with a golf club.
Yeah, and like he was intimidating the star pitcher. Like he was taunting him the entire time, and like he swung at him, or not. He threw a ball at him. It was a strike. He threw another ball. It was a strike. And then like after taunting him some more, instead of a third strike, he landed a ball, and then he got 4 balls, I think, and then he got walked. Like Keiichi just walked because he was too scared to like lose to him in a fair fight or some shit. And then Satoko shows up, and then Satoko like manages to fucking launch like that ball into the stratosphere, and then they end up barely winning. just insane shit. Then everyone wants to interview Keiichi at the end, and he's like, "Sorry." Yeah, because you have this guy that just like showed up out of nowhere with a golf club, and then they beat a star pitcher that's on his way to, again, literally like a high school, like you know, like the big leagues in high school, like Japanese, like national, like baseball. Insane. It was one of those like very wacky chapters.
Which I love that they're still willing to do these.
Mind you, like 4 hours before this chapter, we found a body in a gutter.
Yep. But yeah, so we end up winning the game. Thankfully, we do get to finally talk with Coach Urie, like, properly.
Yeah.
And he's the coach for our baseball team, which is good. He's a doctor, and informally you can tell he's kind of like watching Satoko, because like Satoko doesn't have parents around really anymore. She lives with Rika, but like he's like at least trying to keep an eye on her. So when we find this out, Keiichi tries asking Irie if he knows anything about Satoshi. Irie gets weirdly evasive, but he eventually is like, he transferred away. He transferred schools.
Yeah.
But not without revealing that clearly his transfer had really impacted Satoko negatively, because they had been living with really awful caretakers. Their aunt and their uncle. Right around the time that Satoshi ran away.
That isn't elaborated on until a little bit later.
Yeah.
Specifically. But yeah, we're told shortly. I think it's literally the next chapter is when we're told about this.
But yeah, no, so he's just we learn later on that despite all the despite all the tragedies and stress Satoko has that she's experienced, she's thankfully healthier and happier, like right around now, and she seems to be getting even better, like as they're talking, just because Keiichi's been really close and been like a stand-in for her older brother, which has clearly helped.
Right.
And then we even learn that Coach is considering formally adopting her, just because living with Rika's fine, but like he thinks that she really needs some kind of like adult to like look after her. But his status as an unmarried man makes it extremely difficult. Shion, we learn that Shion is there and that she's the manager for the fighters, which is interesting. Although Irie kind of makes. Sorry, go ahead.
No, she's like informal. Well, she's formally the manager, but she's just there out of like spite or some shit. I don't know. She just didn't really want to be there.
The recap mentions that Irie rips into her a little bit for always being absent. So she's the manager, but she's just never there. But Shion joins in on the conversation, and just they talk a little bit more about Satoshi and just talk about Coach and the team and everything. Later on, we actually get a private moment with Shion.
That's chapter 4.
Yep. We get to probe her some more about Satoshi in particular, because clearly Coach was being evasive, but she might know something too.
Right. This was the following day after after having won. Coach was like, "Oh well, I'll treat you all to like barbecue," and then Mion was like, "Oh, but don't skip out on like the good meat." He's like, "Ah, fuck." So he does a barbecue. They do it on the shrine grounds, in Hinamizawa. And then, like, after trying to talk more to Coach about this, Cage is like, well, I'm going to help you guys clean up. And then he's washing dishes, and all the, like, sinks are basically, or all the, like, what are they called? Like, the outside, like, fountains or whatever, where people are normally wash your hands. Like, they're all taken up. So he's like, there should be another one. So then he finds one, like, next to, like, Rika's house, basically. And then that's when Shion shows up.
Yep. And that's when he gets to probe a little bit more about it. But that was a mistake, because she gets really upset really fast.
Yeah. And it's very, very, very weird. It's very weird how aggressive Shion gets.
Well, and specifically, the turning point in the conversation is when Keiichi mentions transferring out.
Yeah.
She gets super upset by that in particular.
How do you know? Do you have any definitive proof that he transferred out? And he's like, bro, I just moved here.
Keiichi's a little spooked by her reaction, and then tries to plead that he didn't mean anything by it. But he's just repeating. He's basically parroting what everyone else is saying. Shion accepts his apology and then vaguely warns him that there is more to the story. Satoshi didn't transfer is the key point that she tries to drill home. And the recap kind of leaves that conversation closed-ended for now, because it pivots to him asking Mion and Rena about it. And while Mion clarifies that Satoshi is missing, Rena with empty eyes says that he's been punished by Oyashiro-sama.
Right.
Completely normal behavior.
Because at this point, all we knew was like he ran away. Like that's what we knew. Then we talked to Shion, and she's like, sorry, we talked to everyone else, and they're like, oh, he transferred away. He transferred out. And Shion's being vague about it. Then Mion's like, oh yeah, he went missing. So now that's 3 things. And then Rena's like, he was fucking punished by God. He was a
those,
bad
dull
boy.
pupils in the back.
He didn't donate on Sunday during mass. So he got fucking exorcised from this realm.
It's true. But no, Rena is clearly panicking about Oyashiro-sama. So this is kind of what prompts Mion to recap the curses of each year.
Right. Which is stuff that we kind of already knew at this point. Of like all the victims. I mean, this happens every chapter. Keiichi learns about this shit at some point. Although, if I recall, I remember mentioning this, I was like, this is like the earliest we've ever heard of all these. Yes. Every single time it happens on the 6th day, right before the Watanagashi. Here it's happening on like day 5. Yep. Or if this is still the 4th chapter, then on the 4th chapter. Which is crazy. Normally it's until chapter 6.
So yeah, things are moving along pretty quickly, and I have a suspicion that has a lot to do with the simplification of the slice of life stuff, because we got through it kind of quickly.
Yeah.
The main thing they wanted to drill home was just this Satoshi stuff, and that Keiichi and Satoko are getting close.
Yeah.
And like aside from that, there weren't really many scenes for like club activities. There was one, basically, and that was it. So, at this point, after Keiichi learns about the curses, it's around this time that Satoko stops coming to school. And Rika looks more depressed than we have ever seen her.
Right.
But she won't talk about why Satoko is absent. She basically plays dumb with everybody. And around this time, our best friend comes to visit school, which is Officer Oishi.
Oishi shows up. He's like, have you seen this Satoko girl anywhere? Trying to find her. Where is she? And he's like, why do you fucking care?
Keiichi has called out the fact that we get a weird feeling before, but this is the first time where he gets like an actively negative feeling towards Oishi. Where he's like, I don't like this guy. I don't want him around right now. He needs to leave. Yeah. But he decides not to tell Oishi anything. At this point, Oishi's kind of been like a dick. Like he's been not to make a detective joke, I guess, but he's been an asshole. He's been
he went from being very nice and helpful in chapter 1 to a little rough around the edges in chapter 2 to a complete cunt in chapter 3.
Exactly. Yeah. No, in chapter 2 he's like a little bit mean. Yeah. Like he has he's doing like dirty cop stuff, but in this time he's actually like actively hurting Keiichi. Yeah. Which is scary. It's actually terrifying because he gets close, he grabs him by the shoulders and he's like, doesn't this massage feel good? And he's like clearly in pain. Yeah. Which is, this is a 16-year-old boy and a like 50-something-year-old man. Yeah. 60-something maybe. He's like huge. There's no way he's not like in bruising Keiichi. Yeah. Yeah.
Or about that,
too. Which at this point, like EDA is around and he kind of sees what's going on, so he intervenes, thankfully, before any serious damage is done. And that kind of like breaks it up. Oishi leaves, and then EDA gets to talk to Keiichi. He explains that Oishi refuses to close the case on the Hojo family's deaths, and that's kind of why he's been extra invigorated about Satoko, because it's like it could be a lead. Yeah. Which is kind of interesting, knowing that he's so passionate about old cases like that. And then we also learn of his other nickname, which is Oyashiro-sama's messenger. Which people consider him to be a bad omen, because anytime he comes around in the summer, people usually they tend to die
or die. So, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like like after you meet him, like the first time again, it's really nice, but then he starts getting really really cold, and then he becomes like as cold as his AC in chapter 3. Like it's just insane, and we don't even get to like sit in his car, right?
Nope.
No, it all happens outside in the blistering heat. So like his hands on Keiichi's shoulders were like the coolest thing he felt that day. He got ice burned. He got freezer
Absolutely.
burned. So stupid. But yeah, he ends up after Coach diffuses the situation, he's like, "Oh, well, come with me to the nurse's office." And then Cage is like, "We have a nurse's office." And then the coach is like, "All right, take your shirt. I want to feel your soft skin." And then Cage is like, "What the fuck?"
Coach gets a little creepy.
Yeah, he gets very creepy. And then that's when we start learning. He's like, "All right, well, you're fine." And then that's when he tells us more about Yashiro-sama's messenger and what's been going on in Watanagashi. Sorry, in Hinamizawa. God damn.
Yep.
And fucking hell, I lost my train of thought.
I want to also point out this is the point where when we meet Irie, someone calls him Doctor.
Yeah.
And it's never
specifies it, I think.
Yeah, it's never explicitly told, like, is he a medical doctor? Is he just like, did he get his doctorate, or what kind of doctor is he? I think even specifically you were like, they use the word sensei.
Yeah, I looked up the kanji for it specifically that they used, and they used the one for doctor, not the one for instructor.
Right. Exactly.
Because in Japanese, like, sensei is either professor, like at a university, like at an institute, or or a higher learning institute, or at a hospital. And the one they used specifically was the one referring to the hospital sensei.
Exactly.
And that's why I was like, okay, so they mean that.
Right, exactly. And this is the point where they kind of spell it out plainly, where it's like, no, he's just a medical doctor, because he takes us into the nurse's office and actually checks us out, which is great.
For all I know, in the previous section, when they call him doctor for the first time, they probably just spelt it out instead of using the kanji. I don't know. I didn't check because I didn't catch that. I thought they meant like instructor because he was the coach.
Yep.
But then now that we get to this, I'm like, okay, well, they're probably using the other kanji. And then they were.
And it's for sure doctor. But after the talk about Oyashiro-sama, Keiichi goes home for the day. And we kind of skip forward a couple days, or at least one day. Because Satoko has been absent for, at this point, 3 consecutive days from school.
Mm-hmm.
And then the following day, on the 4th day, she actually comes to school. But she looks rough.
Horrible.
Like, she is pale and exhausted. And she tries to pretend like nothing is wrong, but everyone can, they see right through that. Yeah. Rika eventually pulls Keiichi to the side, along with Rena and Mion. But she says she can't keep quiet anymore, despite promising Satoko. She tells them that Teppei came back to town 4 days ago and took Satoko away. Yeah. He is now effectively keeping her prisoner in the Hojo family's old home while he forces her to do all of the housework under the threat of violence. Keiichi tries to force Mion to take care of her and gets called out by Rena. Keiichi apologizes and resolves to go home to think on it. Now, there's some missing details in this recap paragraph because a lot of stuff happens.
A lot of shit happens. The discussion between them is heart-wrenching to read. Yeah,
it's Keiichi is like, we start off on thinking that he's on the right, on the right foot, and he's like, Rena, Mion, you have this gigantic house. You couldn't hold her just for like a day or two or like whatever, and then it turns out that that's obviously going to be way more complicated than he realizes. And then everyone calls him out because they're like, isn't your dad rich? You guys have a big house. You guys should take care of her.
Being 100% honest, like, Mion could easily house like fuck all of them, like no problem.
Oh yeah, she actually lives in a mansion. She
literally lives in a mansion, and she can easily get food. Like she's literally the head of the Yakuza. There is no way she can't just like house and feed these people, right? But I feel like she just didn't want to, because it's like, I do illegal shit at my house, I can't let them get involved, right? Like I've got my little like bunker that I use. I don't need someone to follow me at night all of a sudden because they can't sleep, and then they see me do stuff. So like obviously like she could do it, but she's like no. Well, before this actually, Keiichi was like, oh, we should do a club activity now that she's here. Now that we have the whole gang, and everyone's like, and then Satoko's like, actually, I gotta go. And then he's like, come on, like don't be such a downer. And then she kind of gets mad. She's like, I really have to go home now. And then that's when we get to the whole fucking discussion about all this shit. And then yeah. So they start arguing, essentially, like, Keiichi's like, why don't you house her Mion? And then that's when Rena's like, well, speaking of big houses, what about you, Keiichi? You basically live in a mansion, you've got a bunch of shit, like, you probably have a bunch of spare rooms. And then he's like, you know what, you're right. And he starts fucking thinking about it. And then the entire second half of the chapter is Keiichi figuring out how the fuck he's gonna keep Satoko living there, like a gremlin in their walls, and how to, like, sneak food up to her, how to, like, make sure she can shower and stuff while his parents are out. It gets fucking weird. Like seeing all this, I was like, what's the fuck is going on? Why is Keiichi, like, doing all this? Like,
right, and he also thinks about how, like, he could just ask his parents, but then if he asked his parents, then other people would know, and then eventually, like, they'd be found out. Satoko would have to go back home again. So that's why he's trying to do everything on his own. But he eventually breaks down. He tries to apologize. I can't remember if this was the chapter or not, but there was a point where he tries to apologize to Mion, and Rena's like, "Why are you apologizing to me? You gotta apologize to Mion. Isn't there someone else you should apologize to?" And it's,
I think that's the next chapter. I think that happens next chapter.
One. Okay,
I believe so.
But yeah, he's just he apologized, accusing everyone of not being, and given up and decide more. But before he goes to visit Satoko's house and is like,
oh wait, no, this is still this guy. Yeah.
Yep. He runs into Irie, who is giving Satoko a ride home. Because Teppei forced her to buy several bottles of alcohol, cartons of cigarettes, and just too many things that are too heavy for a single young girl to hold on her own. And not only that, the next town over. Yep, exactly. Yeah. So obviously anybody would feel bad about that and give her a ride. But Irie picked her up, took her over. Irie and Keiichi are both appalled at this notion, and then watch as Teppei appears out of the front door and ushers Satoko inside, only giving her harsh words.
Side window.
Side window. Yep.
Yeah, he opens up the side window. He's like, Satoko, get the fuck in here. Like, we need the money. Or no, we need the booze. And then you hear, like, his friends or whatever shouting shit. Laughing. Like, oh, is she back?
Yep. Nobody offers her a thank you or anything. It's just like, that's all she has to live with. And
did that scene get animated?
She's late. I'm sorry?
Is that scene in the anime? Like, did that get animated?
I don't remember. To be fair, I haven't really watched the anime. I've only seen bits and pieces of it.
We should ask Nadia. She's probably seen
it. But yeah, he says that she's late, even though she got a car ride, which would have made the trip way faster.
Yeah.
So, like, what was he expecting, you know?
Yeah.
The thing that really bothers Keiichi the most about this whole situation, though, is that how Satoko just kind of takes it. She doesn't respond. She doesn't really, like, talk about it. She's just kind of taking it, you know, like, she says that it's no big deal, but when she's actually getting close to talk to Keiichi, he can start seeing bruises on her.
Yeah. I believe it's here. I believe it's in this chapter specifically when we see that. Because we're like, we'll give you a hand with the bottles. We'll take him to the front door. She's like, no, it's okay. And then they still do it. And then she's like, all right, just give me the bags. I'll go in. And when Keiichi hands her the bags, he sees that her wrists and, like, her arms are just bruised. Like, he can see, like, scars or, like, marks on her arms. And he's, like, about to lose his shit, and the coach covers his mouth.
Yep.
And he's like, I get it, Keiichi. Like, just shut up. Like, I get it. And he's just like yelling.
Yep. Yeah, he has to, because like Keiichi basically snaps,
Yeah.
and
Well, not yet.
coach needs to pull him back. Not completely, but he snaps.
Yeah.
And
he has a little mentee.
He's about to like go off on he's about to go off on Teppei, and just he gets held back. And then Irie is just like, I'll drive you home. Just we can talk about it in the car. Which I think, if I remember correctly, Keiichi, no, it's not this drive. He takes a nap later, but on one of the drives.
Mm-hmm.
But that's when he talks to Irie basically the whole way.
Yeah. And then we learn more
Irie
about...
is like, go ahead.
No, we learn more about like what's going on with Satoko at this point.
Exactly, yeah. Irie is clearly like depressed about this whole situation. And he's like, yeah, you probably noticed, but she's just kind of taking whatever Teppei dishes out. And he's like, with what I know about her situation, I believe that Satoko herself is... I believe that Satoko thinks that she herself is at fault for Satoshi's disappearance, and she's taking this kind of as like her punishment for not being strong enough.
Oh, right. Before I forget,
to protect her brother.
It was in the last chapter when they, or I think it's still this one, when they're talking about like who should adopt who. We learn more about Satoko's situation after we get into our argument, which, mind you, like this could, like us getting into an argument with our friends, as in Keiichi arguing with Rena and Mion about who should take Satoko, could have all been diffused if Rika would have just said what she says at the very end before like they all go like home, which is like, oh yeah, this happened like 2 years ago or whatever. We try to help her out, no one could take her in. We try to call like child protective services on her, and it turns out that everything was fine, quote unquote, and they couldn't do anything. And when I heard that, I'm like, Rika, why didn't you fucking say any of this 20 minutes ago?
Yeah, why did you wait to say this?
Why did you fucking wait? So we learned about that, and then during this ride home, if I recall, we learned more about what happened then specifically. And I'm pretty sure here's where the coach tells us that, oh no, that was the second time it happened. The first time it happened, it was Satoko who called them.
Yep.
And we're like, what?
It was a false accusation. Yep.
Yeah. Because she felt like she wasn't getting enough love from her stepdad, or something. Yep. And it didn't go well. So then the second time that it happens with her aunt and uncle, well, they're a little more cautious about it. They're gonna wait and see.
Yep. That was the theme of like the midpoint of this chapter, was wait and see.
Yeah.
Which is obviously Keiichi's not cool with. But we'll get to that.
Yeah. He takes it pretty well, I'd say.
But while Irie is explaining this, he thinks that Satoko is taking this abuse, hoping that by the time she becomes strong enough to take care of her uncle, like stand up to her uncle, that's the miracle that will make Satoshi come back.
Yeah.
And so it's like obviously heart-wrenching. But that's kind of the most we learn about the situation in the car ride. We end up back at home, and Keiichi spends most of the night trying to figure out the logistics of getting Satoko to stay at his house. So like we talked about, the things like the bathroom situation, the food situation, making sure mom and dad don't find out
where she's gonna sleep.
The whole nine.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Keiichi's like brilliant idea is she's gonna live in my closet. My mom never checks my closet. It's like, are you fucking insane?
He might be.
Like, not one of the spare rooms that they have.
No.
Which his mom probably never cleans, but it's specifically my closet. Or are they considered closets in Japan where they put their futons?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Then yeah, I thought they had a different name. But yeah, specifically his closet. But again, this
Um,
is to remind you that Keiichi is like 14, 15. You know, he's a
yeah,
kid. He's
yep,
stupid.
of course. If he wasn't stupid, the story wouldn't work out as well as it does.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. Which is really fucking funny.
um, but this kind of like overthinking this situation just causes him to like get really sleepy and fall asleep for the night. Um, which actually causes him to wake up late in the morning because of how late he stayed up trying to think about this.
Yeah,
Um,
here's where we start getting into the turning point, if I recall, of that happens in every Higurashi chapter thus far, of Keiichi being like sleep deprived
yep.
to some extent. If I recall specifically, like Keiichi, like he went home, he went upstairs after dinner, and then he's like, all right, I gotta think about this shit. And then before he knew it, he had fallen asleep around like 4 in the morning. It
Yes.
was like 4 or 5 in the morning, and then he wakes up super late.
Yep.
And he barely like makes it to school on time. Well, not sorry, not to school on time. He makes it to school by lunch or some shit, or by the time lunch is ending. Like that's how late he had woken up.
Yep. Yeah, he figured that if he took a walk to clear his head before he went to school, that
Yeah.
he would get there around lunchtime.
Mm.
And during this detour on the way to school, he runs into Tomitake.
Yeah.
Which, speaking of turning points,
That's the first time we hear about him this chapter.
yep. So we run into Tomitake, and then he asks if we could show him the way to the Furude shrine. Keiichi takes him there, where he meets up with Takano. He speaks a bit about the couple, or he speaks a bit with the couple. So Keiichi
Yeah.
speaks with Takano and Tomitake. He learns that Takano is studying Oyashiro-sama's curse.
Mm.
Takano ends up sharing some of her more rational theories on the curse with him. And from this information, he figures that the Sonozaki family are somehow responsible for choosing the victims of the curse.
Mm. More specifically, when they're talking about when they're getting to the point, she says something very, very important when she turns to Keiichi, or she turns her back on Keiichi for a moment, and she asks him a very, very, very pivotal question. I think probably one of the most important questions in the series, which is, do you know who Santa Claus really is?
Mm-hmm.
And Keiichi's like, I don't know. Who?
It's everyone's dad.
Exactly. It's everyone's dad. Oh my god.
Which was that was interesting. And then she's
It
kind of
was
like
such a good coincidence because that fucking stream went live on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve.
perfect. Yeah, no, and then she relates that back to Oyashiro-sama and saying that like, yeah, there's a long history of the god and the curse here, but like it could potentially be, human perpetuated.
Yeah, it could be
Like
anyone.
it could be anyone. Yeah, it could be it's her
It's
main
everyone's
prevailing
dad.
theory is that it's everyone's dad. Exactly. Yeah. Oyashiro-sama.
She basically goes into the whole, oh, it's human nature to want to group together and want to do something like this to show some kind of judgment to those that deserve it. And it's like, well, yeah.
So after this interesting Santa Claus discussion with Takano, Keiichi decides, hey, it's probably time to get back to school. Let's get over there.
Yeah.
So we get to school, and he's like,
And that's when the
I'm
chapter
later
ends,
than
actually.
Yep. He's like, I'm later. Go ahead.
No, I think like as soon as he gets to school, he's like, all right, like that's like when the chapter ends.
Yeah.
If I recall.
Potentially. I don't have chapter markers, so I'm not sure.
Because what happens afterwards is like specifically the next chapter. I know that for sure.
Yeah.
But I know he gets home. Or sorry, he gets to school. He's like, I'm fucking late.
He's later than he thought he would be, and he thought he was going to get in like a ton of trouble. But Chie approaches him and is like, "Thank God you're finally here. We have to talk." Which is, for any kid that's like, especially once you've been late, you're like, "Oh God,
no.
what did I do?" And so before he goes over to Chie's office, he talks privately with Mion, Rena, and Rika about what this could be about. and they all guess that it's probably about the rumors that Teppei is abusing Satoko.
Hmm.
He then shares the information he learned from Irie with his friends, and why Satoko is unlikely to ask for help herself regarding the past calls and everything,
Right.
and wanting to be strong for Satoshi. Um, they all agree that their best and perhaps only course of action right now is to ask Chie to file an official complaint with the local child welfare office that Satoko is being subject to abuse at home. Being subjected to, yeah. During the meeting, Keiichi and Mion do exactly that, but Keiichi quickly finds himself frustrated, despite Chie's assurances that she will do everything she possibly can. She is basically like, she's saying she's going to do everything she can, but she's like still
And Keiichi's
abiding by
like,
the
why
bureaucratic
aren't you
process.
giving me any reassurance? Why are you just saying
Yeah,
you'll try your best? Tell me that you're
yeah,
gonna
exactly.
do it. Tell me that you're gonna help her. And she's like,
She's like, all I can do is file a complaint, and then we have to wait and see.
we have to wait and see. Yeah.
Um,
And this
but
pisses
yeah,
Keiichi off
Keiichi's
so fucking much. He starts
he's so
yelling at
mad.
her. He's like,
Yep.
why don't you act like a and this again reminds you of like how childish he is. But again, he is a kid. Where as he's leaving the room, he's like, why aren't you acting like an adult? Why don't you look at me and give me a thumbs up and tell me everything's gonna be okay? That you got this under control. And then this is like Keiichi like kind of, realizing like, hey, fucking the real life doesn't work this way. Like
So
this is a very serious situation.
he gets so frustrated that he begins to think that he needs to take matters into his own hands. And so his first plan is he asks Mion for a formal Sonozaki meeting
Yeah.
at the Sonozaki household. And she's like weirded out by this request, but she's like, sure.
He's like, hey, can I
Um,
borrow some manga? And then she's
yeah.
like, yeah, sure. And then they head on
uh,
over to her house after school.
yep. And when he gets there, he's like, hey, I don't want to speak with Mion. I want to speak with the head of the Sonozaki family, Mion Sonozaki. And she was like, okay.
I just want to tell
And
you that before you do anything, before you tell me anything, I cannot guarantee you will get the results or the answers that you want. And he's
yep.
like, I just want her to listen to my plea.
He's like, yeah, he's like, I don't care if you say anything or don't say anything, just hear me out until I finish. He lays everything out on the table in regards to his feelings about the curse, his
Yeah.
feelings about how the Sonozaki family is related to the curses, and how he really is wishing that Teppei becomes the target for the next year's curse.
Mm.
And then Mion, she's wearing an expression that we've never seen her wear before, through this whole conversation.
Kind of. I mean, we saw it at last chapter.
True, a little bit. Yeah.
Like when she was talking to Keiichi. Actually, when she was it Anna in the room? Yeah, Arena was in the room when she was talking about like her role as the head of the Sonozaki family. She had a different sprite. Like her face looked a little bit more relaxed, and she was speaking with more. She was speaking in kanji. She was speaking in cursive. And then that's what she kind of pulled that off again here in this specific chapter during this specific scene.
Yeah. But she, at the end of at the end of Keiichi's rant, she's basically like, you realize you're asking your friend to become a murderer, right?
No.
And
you're not gonna murder her, but someone will.
And that the Sonozaki might have a bit of a bad reputation, and they're not really entirely undeserving of it, but they wouldn't stoop to things like murder.
Yeah, right? Murder? Nah. That's something they would never fucking do. Human sausages maybe, but never murder. They're like vultures. They pick bodies, they do not produce them.
Yeah. Exactly.
What was the name of that canned food? It was Soylent Green.
At the end of their discussion about the Sonozaki family, she gives him one last warning about how, as an outsider, she's basically like, hey, don't put too much stock into don't put too much stock into those stories. Takano and you are outsiders, so you tend to misunderstand things.
No.
And then he was like, "Who said anything about Takano? I didn't say anything about Takano."
Right.
But because both of them are outsiders, she's like, "Yeah, don't think about those things too hard."
Right,
like,
right. Because when Keiichi's like, "Hey, can you make sure that her uncle is the victim of the next curse?" She's like, "How did you, like, who told you that we even do that?" And he's like, I read about it." And then that was kind of, or like, I heard about it. She's like, "From who?" He's like, someone, I don't remember who they were. And that's kind of what clues her in. And then that's when she kind of tells him, like, "I know who you're fucking talking about. You outsiders are all the same." you think my family's full of savages.
So they end that day with him going home. But the next day is the day before the Watanagashi festival.
Yes.
And much to everyone's relief, Rika shows up to school with Satoko. They ask Satoko about the visit from the welfare officer and what happened to her uncle. And she's like, "Nothing happened."
Yeah.
Like everything's fine. Everything went back to normal, but like not normal as in them living together, but just like her staying with her uncle.
Yeah. They did nothing. They're gonna wait and see.
Yeah, it's the worst. Keiichi's disturbed by this news, and it gets worse when Rika quietly asks him to follow her into the hallway so they can talk about it privately. Rika reveals that this actually marks the third time someone has reported abuse in Satoko's household, so we get more details about the 3 calls.
Yeah.
It happened before with her stepfather on the first time. Satoko never got along with the stepfather, and their bad relationship escalated to a point where she had hurt herself and falsely reported him for abuse in an attempt to get rid of him. This is the reason why the child welfare office is hesitant to do anything rash right now, because they think that she's just the boy who cried wolf.
Right.
Keiichi is upset that they decided to take the wait-and-see approach again, but Rika tells him that at least the officer ended up recommending regular checkup visits with the Hojo household, so if something happens, the authorities can definitely step in. She tells Keiichi that they have done literally everything they can do on the official front, so the best they can do for Satoko right now is to be her friend and like just help her in any way that they can.
The only thing anything would happen would be if someone were to take matters into their own hands. That would be the only thing that could happen now.
And then, although he is unhappy with what he sees as the systems in action, Keiichi resolves to do as Rika suggested. At lunch, Keiichi pretends to steal Satoko's lunch, and the two play fight for a little bit.
Actually, before this,
Keiichi...
it was at this point when we got to this point in the story, mentally I was like, okay, so it looks like Keiichi's gonna back off. He's gonna back off, and then Satoko's probably gonna do something, because in chapter 1, Satoko said that if she was ever gonna kill someone, it was gonna be through poison. Like in the clue game that they were playing, and it's been implied throughout the entire throughout the entire chapter. We've been told, not implied, that Satoko does all the cooking, Satoko does all the cleaning, and she's always buying stuff for, like, snacks and stuff for her uncle. So she has plenty of time to poison him. Whether it is, like, his food, his alcohol, whatever she gives him. Because so long as it's prepared correctly, he will eat it, and, he will just choke and die. Right? Mm-hmm. So I thought, okay, Keiichi's just going to back off, and then Satoko is going to get revenge that way. But then we get to what you're about to describe.
Yep. After the two of them are playing around for a little bit, Keiichi goes to pat Satoko's head, and this is another major turning point in the story because she completely freaks. She flips out, and she starts screaming and crying, huddles in a corner. And she starts just repeating, "I'm sorry," over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Keiichi's like flabbergasted at this point.
This scene was incredibly hard to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was really rough, and Keiichi the entire time was like, "What is going on?" And he's
Even
so
Mion and Rena
confused.
were like confused initially. They were like, "What the hell just happened?" Um,
Yeah.
Rena realizes kind of what's going on first, and then
Hmm.
she's like, "Hey guys, take a step back. We're just gonna let her hang out for a sec."
Hmm.
Um, but then when she gets close, uh, excuse me, when she gets close, she sits down to Satoko, who is still crying and babbling incoherently, and tearfully apologizes for not doing enough to help her.
Hmm.
Keiji, meanwhile, decides that this horrible situation cannot be allowed to continue. He curses Oyashiro-sama, the government, and Satoshi for all failing to do nothing in terms of helping Satoko. If the
Uh,
system will not do anything about it,
yeah.
it is too late. He must then take matters into his own hands, and as such, he decides that there is really only one solution left to him. Since Teppei is the source of all of Satoko's current anguish, he will just simply get rid of him. He's going to have to figure out a way to kill him swiftly and mercilessly, preferably without getting caught. And this is where the famous 1500 seconds line comes in.
Because by the way, the Watanagashi tomorrow, so
Yeah.
he's gotta figure it all out. But he's got 1,500 seconds. That's all he needs.
Yeah, that's all he needs.
To add a little bit more to that scene, when Rena and goes up to Satoko, and like, she crouches next to her, and Satoko's like scared, and she's like, I'm sorry," and Keiichi tries to take a step forward, and she freaks the fuck out some more, and then Rena yells and snaps at Keiichi, and she's like, "Shut the fuck up, Keiichi, step
Yep.
back," and he's like, "What the fuck?" And then I believe Satoko throws up, like I believe she just
Yep.
vomits. And it's just like the scene's already hard to watch, and then it just gets even worse. It somehow
Yes.
just gets worse, like to sit through, because you're watching all, like you can't do anything. You as the reader
Mm-hmm.
are there, and you're not gonna skip ahead.
No.
So like you're just it's like Ryu like grabs you by like the head and like fucking forces you to read all this shit, and in our
It's
case
like, what is
hear
that?
it.
Is that movie Clockwork Orange where the eyes are pried open?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's when they're forced to watch ultra violence.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, no, it's fucking insane. It's a very insane scene, and then yeah, that's when Keiichi's like, he has an like I was so lost when this shit happened. Like the colors got inverted, like you said, and then he just like has an out of body experience. He's like, all of my senses are heightened, and I
Mm-hmm.
can just like see and feel everything. Like I can see like the classroom from above or some shit, and I'm just like, what the fuck are you talking about, man?
Yeah,
And
this
then
is
I'm
he
like,
experiences a rage on a totally new level.
yeah. He just, I'm like, he's fucking lost it.
Yep. um and God, yeah, at this point this is when he's just calculating everything. And
Mm,
I think that the 1500 seconds line it's funny, but it's a bit of like dark humor, I guess, in this scene in particular. Like this isn't a comedic scene, obviously.
it's not,
But
yeah.
it comes off as funny at first, and then because it's like 1500 seconds is 25 minutes, you idiot. But
Yeah.
he's like, no, I don't need to measure things in minutes because that's too broad. I'm measuring things in seconds because I
Yeah.
can optimize down to the second how I'm
Yeah.
going to kill this man.
Mm.
And it's like, whoa, okay, all right.
Yeah, like it was really funny
um,
reading like 50 for like 1,500 seconds. But then
yep.
yeah, once he starts describing it, it's like, okay, it's because he's
Yeah, we're
very childish about it, kind of, because
yeah.
he's because he's saying he's gonna get all this shit done, which mind you, like throughout our entire like Higurashi playthroughs, like for chapter 1 and 2, like Keiichi is not the most reliable guy in
No.
terms of seriously getting certain things done.
Mhm.
Like we got fucking held back by Arena of all things, while Mion was gonna like inject them, like in chapter 1. So it's like, how's he gonna take down an old man that's probably like a member of the Yakuza?
Yep. Member of the Yakuza, probably about Oishi's size, given his like reputation.
Yeah.
Yeah, just it's definitely not happening. But that's all he's thinking about basically the rest of the day. And like he gets home, at this point, he's still like freaking out about this. His friends don't realize he's freaking out about this because they just invite him to help with Watanagashi setup. Keiichi just ends up rejecting their invitation. Instead, he decides to go home and discuss the nature of the perfect murder with his mom.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, he's like, who do I know that knows a lot about murder? Oh yeah, my mom reads a bunch of mystery novels. And I'm like, wow. Back before like serial killer podcasts, women were all reading like serial killer novels. It's like, oh, that makes a lot of sense for 2006.
Yeah, I think this one was even like 2003 or 2004. Yeah, one of the two. But she
it's set in the 80s, which says a lot about women, huh?
Jesus.
So stupid.
Yeah, 1983. But she points out that in every story about a crime, the crime must first be discovered by someone before there can even be a story in the first place. Which
is why the perfect crime is
I'm not going to comment on that.
What do you mean?
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
We'll talk about it.
That's what she says. That the perfect crime is one that just never starts. So if there is going to be a perfect crime, it has to be, to the point where no one even knows it happened, or no one could tell that it happened. And she gives us, I believe, a story of like. The example is essentially is if a tree falls in the woods and no one's around to hear it, doesn't make a sound. That's like the general gist of it. Where, imagine some old guy dies in the middle of the woods and only one person visits him, and only one person's ever visited him and only knows of him because the rest of his family doesn't care about him. And if he disappears one day because that guy killed him, who's gonna know?
And this
just what gives Keiichi his ideas.
Yeah, Keiichi only hears middle of the forest, basically, and he's like, perfect, I'll kill him in the middle of the forest. Thanks, Mom.
Perfect.
But now he's like, I'm gonna lure him out to an isolated place.
Scratch his chin.
He figures that since, like you said, Teppei is an infamous lowlife with an established history of disappearing, that nobody's really going to care if he disappears.
Because I believe we were told that he disappeared during one of the Watanagashis, that he was one of the missing victims. I believe his wife was beaten to death by ruffians, and then he disappeared.
I think the story was that the wife was found beaten to death, and then it was Satoshi that was the disappearance. But he ran away, for sure.
Oh, right. No, then it was then it must have been afterwards. I forget. Like at some point after the Watanagashi, then that's when Teppei just fucking left. Maybe because his wife was fucking murdered.
I mean, like if you find out that your wife was beaten to death and then your nephew just disappeared, you'd probably be a little spooked. You'd probably want to leave immediately.
Yeah, so so that already like established a quote unquote history of him running away around the time of the Watanagashi. So if he were to disappear tonight, people would probably just assume the same thing. So it'd be like a crime that never started.
Exactly. Yep. So everyone thinks, or he thinks, that this will be a good way to trick everyone, because everyone will just think that he disappeared because of the Watanagashi, because he's a victim of the curse. And he's
also banking on Mion to not squeal. Yeah, which is
because Mion at this point she kind of like knows that something's probably going to happen to Teppei, and he's like, if I end up doing this, Mion's probably going to figure it out, and we can't have that. We don't want her talking.
At some point, because he even like said, look, I'm talking to the head of the Sonozaki family. Like, you don't think that at some point she's like, hey, she's talking to Oishi because she's in jail. She's like, hey, I got a bargaining chip for you. What if I give you info on like a murder that happened in 1983, and you give me
it's
bail?
Related to the Hojo curse, and he's like,
what? He's slobbering at the mouth. He's like, and you just want bail? And she's like, yeah, I want bail. He's like, okay, but only if you cooperate. And then she just squeals on Keiji, who's like in university now. He gets arrested on school grounds. He gets tackled as he's like going to chemistry. Oh my god. You fucking like the STF gets called or some shit or whatever their FBI is. Oh, that'd be fucking funny.
But no, so during this process of like piecing out how he's gonna do this, he determines that Teppei can't just die. He's gotta be a little like poetic about it, you know.
Yeah, he pulls a fucking Dexter during this shit. It's like he almost because again like at the time that I was reading all of Watanabe, I think I had just finished watching Dexter, like the first series, or like all 9 seasons of it, like because I started that shit in the summer. And like what Dexter does when he is gonna kill someone is he finds out about them, he figures out whether or not they deserve to die, then he sneaks up on them at some point or does something similar, injects them with a drug that cannot be traced essentially, which is just horse tranquilizer, and then he drags them over to a symbolic room. Let's say it's a shop owner and he kills people, right? Like in a shop, he takes them to like that shop, that room where he kills people. And he puts them on like a table or some shit. He wraps the entire place in cellophane, and he wraps the person in cellophane. And when he wakes them up, they're surrounded by pictures of all their victims. And then, he like makes them feel remorse and then he kills them, right? And that's kind of what Keiichi wanted to do. He wanted to do something similar to like to make him suffer and like remember all the pain he's caused, like Satoko. Yep. And I'm just like, he's becoming a serial killer. He's gonna like take his ear and keep it as a trophy.
The two pieces of that he decides are going to be the most important are, one, he has to be beaten to death in a similar way as the other Hojo, like his ex-wife, or his deceased wife, I guess. And then two, if he's going to beat him to death, it should be with Satoshi's baseball bat. Yeah,
because it has to be poetic. It has to be because he's now taking up the mantle of her Nini, and that's how he's going to do it. He's going to carry his spirit with him.
Exactly. Yep. And then once he decides all of this, he finally picks his place out in the woods, which is like on a good route essentially for him to like run into Teppei and deal with everything, and also is enough out of the way that like he can bury him out in the middle of these woods and nobody would know.
Yeah, like the way I understood it is like, imagine you're standing in the middle of the road, and then in the distance you can see the little entrance to, I guess, the part of the village where Satoko lives, and the first house that you see is Satoko's. So you can see someone coming up the road. And then what he was gonna do is he was gonna like attack him and then drag his body for like 10 minutes into the woods, and then fucking bury him.
Yep, pretty much exactly.
Just such a fucking like it's a very, I don't want to say childish thing, but it's like a very not super thought out plan, I guess. Well, he tried his best for his first time, I guess. Okay, all first murders are sloppy.
And then we actually get a whole paragraph dedicated to the last part of his plan, which is he realizes that in order for this to go as smoothly as possible, Satoko needs to be as far away from Teppei as possible. So he goes home, he calls Mion, and when he gets on the phone, she's
this is still on the night of the day before the Watanabe, by the way.
The prep, yep.
Yes, it's after they finish setting up and everything.
Yeah, and it's the party with all the village heads and everything, and she's like pissed drunk. And he asks her like, "Hey, will you take Satoko to the festival with you tomorrow and just keep an eye on her?" And then he has to do something before he would have gotten her, but he has to do something before the festival before he can show up. Mion then begins to cry, like a lot. And then she starts rambling about how she let it slip. She starts rambling a lot, and then she lets it slip that Satoshi made the exact same request exactly 1 year ago. And Keiichi cannot help but be shocked at the coincidence. He ponders the fact. He ponders the facts. Satoshi already made the same moves he is making right now, and
Yeah.
Satoko's aunt was killed, and how Satoko's aunt was killed around the same time. He wonders if Satoshi's reasons for running away was perhaps not rooted in cowardice at all, but in him killing his aunt to protect Satoko, and then going into hiding rather than let Satoko be known as the sister of a murderer. At this point, he asks.
Sorry, because the entire time up until this point, Keiichi kept bad mouthing Satoshi, kept calling him a coward. He kept wondering how he could do something so cruel as to leave his sister to just be abused by her uncle and so on and so forth. And he kept wondering why someone would ever do that. And it isn't until this moment that he's like, wait, what if? And then it kind of clicks in his head once he's in this primal state. That's when he's like, oh, he did what I did.
And at this point, we ask Mion if she also thinks that Satoshi was the person who murdered the aunt last year, and she's still very audibly drunk, but she's like, yeah, I had my suspicions, but I don't think that Satoshi was capable of such a thing. Afterwards, she adds on that Oishi seems to believe that was what was happened on the night last year. And her voice only briefly trails off as she notes that there are some things about that story that don't add up. After all, the police caught the culprit and he confessed to the crime, right? Which is the guy who was geeked out. She gets back on track and says that she has actually already talked with Rena and Rika about having an outing with Satoko tomorrow anyway, noting that Teppei didn't really seem to care one way or the other. She also notes the suspicious timing of Keiichi making the same kind of phone call Satoshi did, but decides not to press on the issue any further during this call, and the two bid each other good night.
Yeah. This was such a very interesting cliffhanger. For sure, because that's when the chapter ends. The phone call's over, chapter's over. And I was like, oh man, I have to wait a whole week to find out what happens.
And then at this point, you're also thinking about how in the early stages of this chapter, it's very clear that Satsuko considers him to be an older brother. Yeah. And you don't really think anything much about it. But there have been clues even in the first two parts where it's oh yeah, no, Keiichi is very clearly acting in a similar way to Satoshi. And it gets deeper and deeper and deeper to the point that you're doing basically the move for move the exact same thing. Yep. Yeah. Which is interesting. Raises some questions for sure. So next day, as the rest of the club goes to the Watanagashi, Keiichi, now quite convinced that Satoshi's spirit is guiding his steps in order to once again protect his sister from those who would harm her. I think Keiichi mentions that he woke up refreshed, he had gotten the best sleep of his life after that phone call. Because he felt this resolve within himself when he's Satoshi did the exact same thing, and we're both acting on behalf of Satoko because we want to protect her. So his spirit is definitely with me. And reading all this shit, I was like, Keiichi has fucking lost it. Yeah, he's gone. Yeah. Bro is out of here. Lights are on, but nobody's home. Yeah. I love that expression. It's so good. But he begins to put his plan into motion, which starts with him sneaking into the empty schoolhouse to call Teppei, pretending to be a police officer, and tells him Satoko has gotten into trouble. He knows that Teppei will drive through a stretch of the road through the forest to get to the police station. So he lies in wait and ambushes him with Satoshi's bat as he drives by on his motorbike. And it's it's a straight on, Keiichi just goes berserk. He beats him. Teppei tries to run away, and he's just chasing Teppei. To elaborate on this, Keiichi is how the fuck am I gonna do this? I need to call him but I can't use a payphone. There's not a payphone nearby, because I gotta do it right quickly. And he's like, okay, I'm gonna
leave the baseball bat by the construction equipment at the school. The school is nearby Satoko's place, so I'm gonna then just get into the. I'm gonna break into the school, call him from there, and then I'm gonna grab the bat and then fucking book it back to his place, and then I'm gonna ambush him. And it just so happens that the fucking school is locked, and by some miracle, like some firefighter or whatever, one of the rangers, like park rangers, or members of the construction equipment, one of the owners of the construction
service.
Yeah, for the forestry service, right? He ends up unlocking a door. He sneaks in, and then he's able to pull this shit off. And then he just books it straight to that little path, and then he's just waiting like by a tree until he hears a motorcycle. The second he hears a motorcycle, he steps out from the trees, swings his bat, hits the guy as hard as he can. The bike goes trailing to the left and crashes onto a tree. And while this dude is on the ground wondering what the fuck is going on, Keiichi just starts beating the shit out of him. And he specifically starts thinking, if I hit him in the head, he's going to block his head. So I'm going to then hit his body. And I'm going to alternate it so that his body, by reflex, or instinctively tries to cover himself, but he can't, and I'm constantly getting hits in. And then he goes into how once he starts doing this, Teppei enters a fight or flight mode, and he runs away into the woods like a coward, I believe is what he calls him. And he chases after him. He's like, he does like some anime shit where he's like, just breathe in carefully. And then he just takes off after him. He gives him like a head start for some fucking reason. And then he just starts swinging at him as he's running away. Which is just unbelievable shit.
Absolutely. And it does take a little while for him to finally catch up and get enough hits in, but eventually he does end up beating Teppei to death.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, so he disposes of the body by burying it, and the murder weapon and the motorbike. But the murder weapon is more significant. So he dumps the bike and the bat into the swamp. And he kind of sees tossing the bat into the swamp as like putting Satoshi to rest, to an extent.
Right.
If I remember correctly. The recap doesn't go over that, but like I remember him having like an internal monologue, quote unquote, with Satoshi before he puts the bat into the swamp.
Yeah, so essentially, when he's beating Teppei to death, like his body is there, and he has no idea whether or not he's dead or not because he's never killed someone before. So then he just gets like a really good swing on his head, smashes his skull, and then he's like, all right, he's definitely dead now. By this point, it's raining, and Keiichi's like, shit, I gotta drag him back to like the hole. I'm gonna get my lantern first.
Yep.
Because he left his shovel at the hole. And in order to get the shovel, he has to get the lantern because he doesn't know where it is. And he doesn't want to get lost in the middle of the woods. So he's like,
and at this point, like, it probably could have even rained away because of like, all the rain that's been coming down.
Right. So he's like, all right, I'm gonna dispose of the bike first. And then and the baseball bat. So he's like, I've never driven a bike. But it should be just like a bicycle, right? Just with a motor. So then he turns it on. He's able to ride it, and then he's like, "All right, I gotta dispose of this shit." So then he just revs it, and then he just drives it, and then he plays chicken, and then he fucking jumps off the bike right before like the edge of the cliff that leads to the fucking swamp below, and then he just sees the bike like slowly like drain into the swamp, and then he's got a heartfelt moment with the bat. He looks up to the sky and he sees Satoshi's shadow or like his outline or whatever. Not really. But he's like, he has a moment with the bat as if he were talking to Satoshi. And then he throws the bat into the swamp as well. And then we see it just drift away. Or also drift into the swamp.
Exactly. And at this point, after everything is said and done, he tries to start going home. And he finds out that he's much more exhausted than he anticipated. He's basically half awake as he walks. But after a short amount of time, a car approaches him. Turns out that the driver of the car is none other than Takano. She takes a look at Keiichi's state and guesses that he has been up to something highly suspect.
Wait,
But she still takes...
I'm pretty sure he does. He still goes to get the lantern, and then he comes back. He's like, I'm way too tired to drag his body to this side of the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, no. He goes back home. He grabs his lantern. He's like, well, I've got another shovel I can use.
Yes.
I'll just come back for the other shovel later.
Yes.
So he fucking walks. He runs back home or some shit. And then he grabs the lantern. He grabs the other shovel. He assembles it. For some reason. And then he takes it. He goes back to where his body was. And he's like, well, fuck it. I'll just dig the hole here. Even though it's like muddy and rainy, the dirt is like a little easier to get into. So he starts digging. And he's like, well, it goes up to... how deep was it? I think he said it goes above his ankle. That should be deep enough.
Yeah, I think he said it was just below his knee. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's like, this is deep enough. And then he just dumps the body in. And then, and then he just, covers it up. Then he goes back to his bike, and he's like, okay, I have to get back home. I think he says that he's gonna like just cover up the other hole tomorrow, if it hasn't been covered up by the rain already. And as this part like really pissed me off. He's driving back while holding the spade in one hand and then holding the bike handle with the other. So he's not holding onto it with both. And he's riding around kind of loopy. And then that's when he almost gets ran over by a car.
Which ends up being Takano's car.
Takano. Yeah, and like during this whole time, I was like, why don't you just like if the spade, because he couldn't, he was too weak to undo the spade. It was a spade that you kind of like build together, and he couldn't put it in the basket. And I'm just like, like, I don't know, man, like hold on to it with both hands, like put it over the handle, like have the spade like on the side of the bike. I think at one point he's like, I can put it on my back, but it's gonna slide off or some shit. I'm just like, what the hell are you doing, Keiichi? But I remember, you know what? He's exhausted. He's 14. He just murdered someone. He doesn't know what the fuck he's doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
So then we get to.
So he's completely like frazzled, 100%. And she's like, she takes pity on him, but she's like still suspicious of him. So she insists on giving him a car ride home. But at this point, she's like, I'll help you anyway. Like, just don't worry about it. And they put his bike in the back. As they drive to the house, Keiichi notices that Takano has Tomitake's folding bike laying in her back seat. When he points it out to her, she just dodges the question. Before she drops him off, she makes sure to tell him that the two of them have never met on this night. Like, hey, we didn't run into each other. You understand me?
Yeah, so more stuff happens. So like she kind of hits him. Well, he rides into her, and he gets fucking knocked out of his bike. And she's like, "Oh, Keiichi, what a coincidence to see you here. What are you doing out in the rain with a shovel all the way out here? Isn't your house all the way over there?" And he's like, "Haha, yeah. Anyway, I gotta go." And she's like, "Oh, I'll give you a ride. It's raining after all." And she's like, she walks up to him with like an umbrella, while holding an umbrella. He's like, no, it's okay. She's like, "Oh, I insist." So she like brings his like muddy like body over to the back seat, and he's like, "Actually, can we put my bike back here?" She's like, "But it's so muddy. That's." It's gonna get the inside of my car dirty. He's like, "Yeah, but I kind of need my bike to get this. Like, I need to take my bike. I can't just leave it out here." She's like, after a bit, she's like, "Okay, we'll put your bike back there. I'll just clean it up later." And after she like puts his bike on, in her back seat, he's like, "Actually, can you also give me my shovel?" And she's like, "Okay. What were you doing with a shovel out here?" He's like, "Well, What are you doing with Tomitake-san's bike?
You ever watch the Disney Channel classic Holes?
You were doing slave labor. So that's when they get into that discussion, and she's like, his bike, how do you know it's his bike? And at this point, I could have just been, I was just thinking the entire time, like, Keiichi, just say that you thought you might have seen it, maybe you were just wrong. But he kept insisting like a fucking imbecile. Like, no, I'm pretty sure this is his bike. She's like, no, it's just a similar model to the one that he had. I mean, he you know, we've seen each other. He fucking recommended it. You know, it's a bike that he suggested. No, it's his fucking bike. It's the same color. And I'm just like, Keiichi, shut the fuck up. Why are you speaking right now? You could have just been like, oh, I think I've seen Tomitake-san with a bike like this one. And her being like, oh, yeah, it's similar to his. I'd be like, oh, neat. It's one of those cool folding bikes. Anyway, can we get home now? I am very tired. Instead, he's just talking about this shit. And then Takano's like, what are you doing out here then? On a completely different topic. Nothing? Oh, well. It's a really nice night to hide a body. I think she says that specifically. But you just got to make sure that the hole is deep enough, because then if you don't, the wild dogs in the mountains will easily find the corpse and dig him out.
Yep.
And he visibly becomes shocked, confused, and she's like, ha 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 ha.
He was like, I didn't know we had mountain dogs.
I didn't know we had mountain dogs. What are you talking about? We have hyenas? What are they? He's so fucking confused. And she's like, oh, well, you have nothing to worry about, right? Mm-hmm. He's like, yeah.
And at the end of this awkward ride, she insists that they never met each other,
right.
Which Keiichi agrees. Takano had only dropped... Go ahead.
When I almost forgot, because after she says this, he's like, I really should have. When she goes over to him, he starts thinking, she's gonna ask me what the fuck I'm doing here. I need to kill her right now. But then he thinks, oh, then I'd have to dig another fucking hole, and I don't want to do that. I'm so tired. So then when she says that, when she's like, you and I never saw each other tonight, and he's like, what do you mean? Okay, he's so fucking stupid. He's like, what do you mean we never saw each other tonight? And then that's when she clarifies, like, if someone asks, you and I never saw each other tonight. Capiche? And like he can feel like her murderous intents. Like he can hear the the go, like, you know, hiragana, like fucking coming from her body like a JoJo character. And he's like, oh yeah, no, I don't know, we never saw each other tonight. And she's like, you're good. Right. And as she gets under her car, he's like, I should have fucking killed him. Why didn't I kill her?
At this point, so she drops him off at the, like, after this conversation, just with at the end of his driveway. She doesn't even pull up.
Yeah.
Probably because she doesn't want to make it seem like her car pulled into their driveway, you know, tire treads and whatever.
Yeah, it's like at the little crossroads or whatever. Before his place.
So Keiichi has a little bit of time to walk up to his front door. As he's walking up to his front door, he could swear he heard another set of footsteps behind him. Yeah. So he's like freaking out because he's like, I thought Takano was leaving. Turns around, nobody's there.
Yeah, like he I believe he says that he hears the engine like take off as he's walking.
Mm-hmm.
And then he mentions the footsteps.
Yep.
I'm like, oh.
So he's completely spooked because he's like, somebody's following me, but then he turns around and nobody's following him. So that's a great way to end the night. He goes into his room. He's exhausted. He doesn't even really dream. It's just...
He just passes out.
He just conks out. Yep.
He's wet as hell, and he's just dead.
Because of his horrible night, he woke up late the next morning.
Mm-hmm.
He's still concerned about his encounter with Takano, and he wonders if it means he's going to have to worry about being caught for the rest of his life.
Yeah. Because he had the perfect crime.
Right. Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it wasn't until until the Takano factor kicked in that well now he's got to worry about her squealing.
Yep. Well, and potentially Mion and
And
a couple
yeah,
other people maybe.
I mean, yeah.
um,
He should have spoken to his mom beforehand, before all of this. So she could have
Yeah.
told him like a perfect crime is one that never begins. So he never would have gone to the head of the like region's yakuza and been like, "Hey, can you kill this guy for me?"
I'm not gonna say that like. So obviously, like Keiichi he's already set on this path.
Yeah.
But honestly, if I was in this like if I knew a friend was hurting and I was in like middle school, right?
Yeah.
I probably, if I talked to my parents, it wouldn't be like, "Hey, how do I kill someone?" It would be, "Hey, mom, what should I do about X situation?"
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. I wouldn't ask her about her true crime podcast. You know, I would have just, you know, been like, "Hey, like, how would I go about with a situation like this?" You know, but then
Yeah,
again,
hey, my friend is really struggling. What can I do?
yeah. Because mind you, I'm sure if he would have talked to his parents about this, they probably would have maybe offered to help in some way, shape, or form. Because I mean, they're adults, right? Not only that, like they're like university like educated adults. Like so his parents are smart, something Keiichi obviously did not inherit. And like they're well learned individuals, which is fucking funny. But again, it's just a reminder that yeah, like he's just a kid. He's a dumb kid. Yeah, how do I construct the perfect closed room murder? Ideally unsolvable. Exactly. So hey Bedward, thanks for stopping by. But yeah, it's like it's like he fucking goes to his mom and asks this question. It's so fucking stupid. But again, it's just a reminder that hey, Keiichi is pretty dumb. And while you're reading this, I'm sure like half of the people reading this could get immersed to the point where they follow along with Keiichi's train of thought. They don't question it. Because I try to force myself to do that because I'm constantly thinking, why the fuck is he doing this? Why would he talk to his mom about this? Why would he not do this or that? And I'm like, right, he's an idiot.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's just go on. I can still have these thoughts, but it's like, Keiichi, what the hell, dude?
That's part of what makes Keiichi so well written is because like he's an idiot and he makes some really questionable decisions, but you can still like it's believable. It's sincere.
You can see the gears turning every now and again. Yeah. Sometimes you see someone when the lights are on.
But yeah, no, so he decides, you know, after stressing out the next morning that he's like, "You know what? I'm going to let these worries wait. I need to get to school first to check up on my friends and specifically Satoko to see if she's there and everything is back to normal now."
Yeah, because in his mind, he's like, "Well, I killed her uncle last night, which means that her uncle never came home. She probably got home, was worried, and then probably slept well, or like was probably relieved in the morning when he wasn't around. So she's maybe she's feeling better."
Right. On the way to school, while he's walking, he once again thinks he hears another footstep behind him, only for there to be no one behind him yet again. He meets with his friends, only to find out that everything is still super wrong, very wrong, and they all claim that Keiichi was with them at the festival in elaborate detail.
Yeah, and mind
I'm
you,
so glad.
To clarify real quick, when this happened in the first chapter, when Keiichi started hearing those footsteps, he was being followed the first time, and it was by Rena. Like Rena was matching his footsteps. And it wasn't until Keiichi like confronted her and basically told her, "You go on ahead. I'll walk behind you," that he kind of like stopped hearing those footsteps until he got to his home, where he thought he heard them again. And he grabbed the bat that he had taken because he was, you know, practicing to swing. You know, he was practicing a swing because he wanted to join the baseball team, just like Satoshi. That you know, he grabs his bat, he swings it, and he thinks he hit something, but there's nothing behind him. Like no one was right behind him. So, and mind you, this was after Keiichi being like super sleep deprived, and this is again, this like these footsteps started happening after he got very, very, very tired. But yeah, then he gets home, and then everyone starts to describe how, you know, how much fun they had at the festival, and how
they're all basically
they're covering for him.
Yeah, they're like, I'm so glad for the Watanagashi discussion on December 4th between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. But no, yeah, they were like, yeah, he was definitely there, guys, right? We had so much fun. Which is like, at this point, one of the things that ran through my mind was Keiichi, like, Keiichi's been having these out of body experiences. Like, did this even happen?
Yes, I was thinking the exact same thing.
Did he actually go to the festival and he was just thinking about this the whole time?
That's like, one of my theories. I guess that's as a spoiler, that was one of my theories. Literally, like, did this actually happen, or is Keiichi just having out of body experiences? But we'll get more into that at the end. But yeah, that's literally one of my theories.
Yep. But after elaborating on how much fun they had, Satoko said she went home early out of fear for making her uncle mad by staying up too late. Even more disturbing is that she breaks down into tears as she claims that Teppei is not only still alive, but still in her house, and that he scolded her when she got home last night, and then again this morning. So Keiichi is just like stunned. He doesn't know what to believe anymore.
He's really fucking confused.
He tries to find some evidence towards what actually happened. The only thing that he seems to be able to find that supports his version of the events is the fact that Satoshi's bat isn't in the locker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is an interesting point.
Like, that's your big hint. Because it, like, he took, because again, it was very it was very obvious that, again, Keiichi came to the school, or like he stayed late or some shit one day. He took the bat, and then he put it by the construction equipment. Then he specifically came to get it on the night of the murder, and then he specifically threw it into the swamp after committing the murder.
Mm-hmm.
Or did he?
Or did he? Was Satoshi even real?
Yeah. Who really swung that day?
So, towards the tail end of this day, things they don't really calm down, but they kind of, like, as best as they can, they calm down anyway. But towards the end of the day, Mion and Rena tell Keiichi, hey, come to the landfill site. We have to we got to talk about something.
Yeah.
And so he immediately tenses up.
This was after Keiichi was like, Satoko, are you sure your uncle came home? And she's like, yes. Well, you were out having fun with everyone. I had to go back home early, and he hurt me. Right? Like, she starts crying, and he's like, what? How? And then that's when Mion is like, hey, Keiichi, do you want to talk about what's going on?
Hey, let's talk about this.
Why don't you join us at the fucking construction site? Why don't you join us at the junkyard real quick? We gotta talk to you after school. It's no biggie. We just got, we're gonna go fishing.
It's not like Mion is the head of a local Yakuza group.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the worst that can happen? We're just gonna chit chat. We're gonna go treasure hunting. It's been a while.
Keiichi gets out of this request by telling them that he doesn't feel well and that he's going to visit the Irie clinic. He's like, yeah, I got to get out of here. Sorry, guys.
Well, and then Rena's like, are you really, like, feeling bad? And he's like, yeah, I'll even bring you a receipt tomorrow. And she's like, okay, you better. Like, you better bring the fucking receipt. And he's like, sure. So then he goes to the clinic. He reluctantly
accepts that. Yep. Yeah, he goes to the clinic. It turns out that Irie is the one to consult with him. Keiichi tries asking him if it's possible for a person to be in two places at once. Irie, thinking that he's speaking hypothetically, tells him about the German myth about doppelgangers.
Yeah, doppelgangers.
saying that they are usually seen as a bad omen. When Keiichi explains, which is not on the nose or anything. When Keiichi explains that he's serious and asks how he could possibly be at the Watanagashi festival yesterday when he was somewhere else, Irie drops the joking attitude and with clear concern in his voice asks him if he experienced any instances of blackout or memory loss. Keiichi insists that it isn't about his memory, but realizing how crazy he must sound to Irie right now, he ends up confessing everything he did in great detail.
Yeah. He does, I guess to elaborate more on this a little bit, because he's on his way to the Irie clinic, and then this is when the doctor sees him, Sensei sees him, and then he realizes, oh, this is your clinic. He's like, yeah, I'm a doctor here. And he's like, oh, okay. And then they start having this discussion, and then he asks Irie Sensei, like, hey, were you at the Watanagashi festival? Did you see me? He's like, I mean, I was there, but I was drinking with all the other adults, so no, I don't think I saw you. And that's when he elaborates more on it. He's like, yeah, because I mean, everyone says that I was there, but I was not there. I specifically remember not being there. I did not go to the Watanagashi festival. He's like, well, what do you mean you didn't go? He's like, because I fucking killed someone. He's like, oh, Keiichi. And he's like, I'm being serious. He's like, okay. So then he listens to him, he listens to what he has to say. He's like, okay, well, hypothetically, say if you were out killing someone, how would you do it? And then he describes everything in intensely, just accurate, great detail. And he's like, well, are you sure he was dead? Yes, I'm sure he was dead. How did you kill him? Look, use me as the model. He rolls up a newspaper. He's like, this is your bat. He's like, all right, well, I struck him here, here, and then here. And then I hit him really fucking hard here. And when I saw his skull crack and the viscera of his brain splash against my skin and the nearby trees, I knew he was dead. And he's like, shit, well, I can't argue with that logic.
Yep. And at this point, he specifically calls out that, while I'm a doctor, I can't condone what you did. But
I'm really happy.
As somebody who cares for Satoko, I understand why you did it.
Does he put his hand on his shoulder or does he hug him? I forget.
It's one of the two. I don't remember.
But he whispers thank you.
Yeah. Keiichi then explains. Oh, go ahead.
No, yeah. Continue.
I was going to say, Keiichi then explains that Satoko claims Teppei is still alive, at which Irie is taken a bit back. He questions Keiichi. This is the part you were talking about where he, whether he or not he's sure he killed somebody. And then he goes into great detail about how he did it.
He's like, no, he's definitely dead.
Yep. Irie mentions that Teppei could be recognized from the tiger tattoo on his back. At this point, he excuses himself, telling Keiichi he will go fetch some tea for the both of them.
Yeah.
Keiichi decides to go to the bathroom, but on the way there, he overhears Irie talking to the clinic staff, asking them to lace the tea with a sedative. As from his point of view, Keiichi is delusional at best and may have murdered a wrong man at worst, and needs to be taken in for an acute mental examination. Keiichi silently curses Irie for betraying his trust and dismissing him as delusional.
He's like, you thanked me for saving Satoko and now you're calling me crazy. What the fuck?
But he doesn't dwell on before another member of the clinic staff comes to Irie with the news. The police have found Takano's body, which is interesting because we didn't meet her last night. Actually, never mind. We didn't meet her.
Speaking of, right, when they parted ways, I don't remember if you mentioned it, he's like, curse you, Takano, I wish you'd fucking die. He's like, fuck you, you bitch, you fucking interfered with all my plans, and now you're gonna rat on me, I hope you fucking, shrivel up and die. And then we get this shit happen, or this shit happens, and that's when Keiichi realizes it. Yep. He has Death Note powers.
Yep, he immediately jumps to the conclusion that Takano must have died because he wished for it.
Yeah.
He spitefully wishes Irie would die for calling him crazy and makes his escape through a window.
Yeah. He's like, well, if Takano-san fucking died because I cursed her, then you will die next, Irie, for betraying me and for betraying Satoko. you're gonna be the next one to die. And then he sneaks out of the fucking clinic.
Keiichi reasons that his best shot for making sense of everything is to make sure Teppei is truly dead. And as such, he decides to go back to where he buried the body to check to see if it has a tiger tattoo. But as he arrives there, he's met by Oishi and a couple other police officers who seem to have a clear idea of what he is there for. Oishi violently makes him dig, making Keiichi wish he would die as well. But no body turns up.
Yeah, instead Oishi, they hit an old pipe.
Yep, exactly. And they go way further down than Keiichi dug, so something is clearly up. Oishi is confounded by this and discusses it with the other police officers, who point out that indeed it seems like the ground was disturbed recently. Also, before I continue this thought, I want to point out this is like probably the worst moment that Oishi has had up to this point, where he's making Keiichi dig, and Keiichi's digging a little too slowly, and he's like, "Come on, let me help you dig," and he pulls a can, like a tin can, out, scoops up some rocky mud, and then splashes it in Keiichi's face. Which is just like the bruising like of the grab earlier in this chapter was bad enough, but this was rough. This is just straight up abuse.
Like he throws muddy water at him the first time, and the second time he throws muddy water with rocks in it, like at his face. He's like, "Come on, get digging," and he's surrounded by cops. He's like, "If you've got nothing to hide, just keep going." And like Keiichi's like, "I'm just really fucking tired." And then they like grab him by the collar and they toss him aside. Actually, no, they splash water on his face when he's interrogating him. He's like, "Why the fuck were you here?" And then he throws water at him. And then the others are digging. They're like, "Hey, like we're a little, we've gone quite a ways. There's nothing here." He's like, "Keep going." He keeps interrogating him and he splashes more. He's like, "Maybe this will remind you, like this will freshen your memory." And he fucking splashes him again. And fucking Keiichi's like, "I have no idea what you're talking about, copper." And then they're like, "Hey, we hit something," and it's a fucking pipe. Like Keiichi freezes up the second they say that they heard something, and then it's a fucking pipe of all things.
Yep. And at this point, when they hit the pipe, they conclude that this endeavor is basically useless, and they all walk away, leaving Keiichi alone. Keiichi goes home to think on what just happened, and once again, he hears footsteps behind him. He wonders if it could be Satoshi's spirit trying to guide him on his path.
Yeah.
He decides that if everything that happened yesterday was all a dream, he'll just have to kill Teppei again, as many times as it takes.
Can you imagine he was just in the wrong spot? Like the body was just like 2 meters in front of them.
Like that was the original hole, and he didn't go to the new hole?
No, that he went to the new hole, but like he just didn't go far enough into like the woods. As if he would have kept walking for like 2 minutes, he would have been at the right spot, but because it was so dark, just started digging where he thought it was.
The thing that makes me think this is actually the correct hole, though, is because they
mentioned
comment
that it was disturbed
about how the ground was disturbed. Yep.
Yeah. Like dogs, though. Why are there like dog prints all over the place?
And this is we're in the last 5 paragraphs here, but this is when stuff really starts to get crazy.
Oh yeah.
So we the next morning after all this happens with Oishi and the police, Keiichi gets a guard.
While you're reading all this shit, you are in a perpetual state of confusion.
Yes, yeah. Because you don't know what happened.
Because you don't know what the fuck just happened. You're like, okay, we didn't go to the Watanagashi. We killed her uncle. Her uncle is still alive. We went to the Watanagashi. Also, the doctors think we're fucking crazy. And they want to examine us like a fucking monkey. And now the cops show up because they're onto us. What the fuck is going on? Which, like, I believe I specifically mentioned this, but like every single time there's a Watanagashi, I mentioned this on stream. Anytime there's a Watanagashi, there's always a fuck ton of cops everywhere. And there is no way Keiichi would have not been seen. There's no fucking way he would have not been followed or anything. He would have been seen, he would have been followed, and he would have been like, encountered. They knew he fucking dug a body. Sorry, that
Yeah, they had to know.
he dug a hole and disposed of a body or something. They knew he committed a crime. So like that's one thing that we do know.
Yep. Or at least they suspect him of a crime.
Right. Yeah.
Of course.
Well, yes, they suspect him. And then we get to all this shit. and you're left with this whole. You're left super confused. That's like, what the hell is going on?
Like maybe he at this point, like one of the things, like one of the places I went, at least internally, was maybe he went to dig the hole, and the police thought that was suspicious. But then, like the rest of it was just a daydream, and he actually did go to the Watanagashi festival. Of course, we'll touch more on that in like the theory side, but there's like a couple different ways you could take this, but this is very clearly like whether or not he did something, he clearly did something specific, like suspicious. So the police have reason to suspect him anyway.
Right.
Which is really terrifying. But at this point in the story, Keiichi doesn't know whether or not Teppei's even alive. So he grabs a hatchet from the gardening shed at his house and just bolts over to the Hojo household.
Yeah.
When he go ahead.
No, yeah, he grabs the hatchet and he fucking bolts it.
Yep. When he gets there, the house is weirdly empty. Like it's been left abandoned for the past couple of days. Searching the rooms, he eventually finds a barely conscious Satoko in the bathroom, sitting in a boiling hot bath. In a panic, he pulls her out, while she deliriously mutters that her uncle said she was supposed to stay in the bath and count to 10,000 as a punishment.
So it seems like we are back.
Welcome back.
All right. Who really disconnected that day? And who came back? All right. Yeah, seems like now it's more stable. All right. Well, let's try to get through this just in case it cuts out again. And then I have to fucking have to like edit a bunch of shit. Like I probably have to delete a bunch of like little VODs.
Yeah.
No, actually I don't. Luckily for me. It's happened before where I get disconnected like 3 or 4 times and I have like just 4 or 5 of these fucking things that I have to get rid of. Anyway, seems like we're good. All right then. So back where were we again?
Where we left off was Keiichi was pulling Satoko out of the hot tub.
Right.
And that is to say a hot bathtub and not literally a hot tub. Right. Although it may as well.
A literal hot tub.
Yes. So he puts a towel on her so she's not naked and starts carrying her to the clinic. But as he arrives there, he finds several police cars waiting outside. Spotting one of the officers talking to one of the doctors, Keiichi decides to eavesdrop. Shockingly, Irie has committed suicide, and Oishi has been reported as missing. So the people that Keiichi has been cursing have also mysteriously died.
Right. And mind you, it says that Keiichi does wrap Satoko in a towel. When you see her sprite, she's like half naked.
Yeah.
Mind you, she's fully naked, but it's like she just has, I don't know, like a small curtain, like on the front half of her body. I'm just like, what kind of towel did you give her? Like, I'm sure there was like an adult towel somewhere, that bathroom. And well, anyway, so they get to the hospital, to the clinic, and it's like Oishi's missing. Irie committed suicide. Like, what the fuck?
And this only reinforces to Keiichi that he has the ability to kill people just by wishing for their death.
Yeah.
While he's thinking about this, his thoughts are interrupted by Satoko, who snapped out of her stupor and asks him, a bit bewildered, to explain what is going on and why she's only wearing a towel.
Yeah, don't worry. Oyashi was the most first to not get us. But yeah, no, just had some issues with OBS. For some reason, it was being a bitch. For anyone that's watching on YouTube later, they're not going to notice. But my God, what a pain. Anyway,
at this point, Keiichi confesses everything to her, but she doesn't take she doesn't take him seriously at all. She says she needs to go to the Furude Shrine for some proper clothes, and Keiichi follows her there. He notices that
not back home for some fucking reason, which is closer.
Yeah.
which
Went to
I
the
don't
shrine.
get.
Well, I think Tepe just basically like grabbed her by the wrist and was like, "You're coming home," and then like hasn't really let her leave the house. So all of her
Mm.
stuff is still at the
Oh, I
Furide
see.
household.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Um, but anyway, Keiichi's following her to the shrine because he wants to make sure that nothing bad happens. But while he's following her, he notices that she seems to be afraid of him at this point, and she eventually runs on ahead. So now that he's
This is once they're
alone,
at the shrine, by the way.
yeah, Keiichi laments how he ended up alienating her despite his vow to protect her. Before he discovers several crows gathered on top of the shrine, pecking at something.
A trash bag.
Keiichi moves closer to see what it is. It turns out that it is a body. Namely, this is Rika's body, which has been violently disemboweled. As Keiichi stands stunned in shock before vomiting on the floor, trying to process this horrible sight, Satoko returns and screams in terror. She then looks to Keiichi and the hatchet he's still carrying around, and comes to the conclusion that he must have done this.
Yeah.
Keiichi desperately professes his innocence, but Satoko angrily points out that he has already confessed to killing. Already confessed to killing many people.
So it's like, what do you mean, Keiichi? What do you mean you didn't kill her? Obviously, you fucking killed her. Did you not fucking like just tell me that you killed my uncle? You have a hatchet that's not bloody, but it's really rusty. Obviously, you killed Rika.
Then she starts asking like why she should trust him before she runs off.
Which
Keiichi finds her. Yes, yeah. Keiichi finds her again at the rope bridge leading across the river. Satoko is in tears over Rika's death. She blames herself, believing that all of this happened because she broke into the shrine's storehouse when she was younger. And Rika's father ended up blaming his daughter rather than her. Keiichi makes another attempt to reason with her, but she isn't having it. She orders Keiichi to get down on his knees, put his hands on his head, and turn his back to her. Keiichi, hoping to placate her at least a little bit, complies with her demands, but she doesn't get any less angry and keeps on ranting and raving.
Yeah.
She accuses him of being an imposter wearing Keiichi's face, saying that the real Keiichi would never have done any of these horrible things he confessed to. In her fury, she pushes him off the bridge. As he plummets from the bridge towards the shallow river below, Keiichi wishes death upon the community of Hinamizawa as a whole for even allowing all of this craziness to happen in the first place.
Yeah.
He then lands hard on his head and loses consciousness.
And the chapter's over. And the game is over. That's the end of the game. That's the end of that's just how Tatarigoroshi ends. Like Keiichi gets pushed off the bridge, and that's it. Like in chapter 1, he dies in the phone booth. In chapter 2, he dies in the hospital. In chapter 3, he dies being pushed off of the fucking ledge. Crazy.
Yeah, wow, that's insane. Anyway, so this next paragraph.
Anyway, there's another chapter, by the way. Anyway, there's no credits. It just shows you like the following morning. They show you Keiichi waking up. It's like, what?
Yeah, I'm sure at this
fuck?
point. I mean, I know I was. I'm sure at this point you were expecting credits, and so seeing that like another line just started, you were like, "Huh?"
Ironically, no, because I was planning these streams out. I'm like, how many chapters are there left?
Oh, that's right.
I'm like, oh, there's 13. It's chapter 12.
Yeah.
So this next one's just like an epilogue, right? It's like, oh, Keiichi's body is discovered, blah 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 blah. Okay, that's probably where we're going. Like internally, that's what I was thinking. And then it starts with Keiichi waking up. So, but in this last chapter, it was so fucking weird, right? Because I mean, we assume Satoko's uncle's dead. Idia is the chick, right?
No,
right, Takano is next discovered to be dead. Idia commits suicide. Oishi-san's gone missing, and now Rika is dead. For some reason, Rika has now been found. Like her corpse is there with her guts out, while these crows are pecking at it.
and Rika was the only one that Keiichi did not curse, so
Right.
there's got to be some significance there.
Right. And I believe they mentioned something along the lines of when was it? I don't know if you're about to mention it or if they mentioned it beforehand, but they mentioned something along the lines of like Rika being. It was implied that Rika was Oyashiro-sama reincarnated, and because Rika was Oyashiro-sama reincarnated and she was found dead, that now the protection on this town had been lifted. Like the protection on this town was gone because she was the last descendant of someone who had like the ogre blood that was also a priest.
Yep.
And with her dead, well, bad shit's gonna happen. So
Demon
that's
stuff.
Yeah, evil stuff is now gonna happen. And then from what I recall, at least from the bridge scene, I don't remember if she tells him to get on his knees. I just remember she tells him to drop the axe, turn around, and put his hands to his head, behind his head. Mind you, Satoko was wearing a towel, I think, this entire time still. I don't remember if she was clothed.
She wasn't. She grabbed clothes, but she was so shocked by Rika's death that she didn't get changed.
Yeah. And fucking she just pushes him off. Because she's now hysterical. She's like, give him back, give me back Keiichi, give me back my Nini, give him back. He would never hurt people like this. He would never do everything that you're saying that he's done. What the fuck? Like, give him back. And she's being hysterical. She's fucking screaming at him. And then Keiichi just falls.
Yep.
And that's it. Then we get to the epilogue.
Mm-hmm.
And the epilogue starts with Keiichi waking up.
Yep.
After somehow surviving a fall from super high up.
He wakes up super like bruised and beaten, but like even with that, he manages to stagger back to Hinamizawa while he's like walking as slow as he can at this point.
Yeah.
He notices that something smells weird. Something smells like rotten eggs.
Mm-hmm.
Or rotten fruit. And
not only that, it's very quiet.
It's also very, very quiet. And that the trees have also taken on like a sickly yellow hue.
Mm-hmm.
There's no sounds of wildlife or anything like that. So he starts by going back to the school, just thinking like, oh, it's the middle of the day. There's got to be someone there.
Mm-hmm.
But he finds that it's swarming with soldiers from the SDF.
Yeah.
And they see him alive and quickly haul him away for medical treatment as he has sustained serious injury to his head.
Yeah, they're like, why aren't you wearing a mask? While they're all like masked up, they're all wearing special equipment, and they're dragging or they're throwing what I believe they mentioned they were like bags of corn or some shit, like bags of produce onto trucks.
Yep. So they haul him away. And as he's being hauled away, he attempts to ask them what's going on, but they don't tell him anything. They basically clam up immediately.
They just turn on the radio.
Yep.
Like, what's going on?
As he's being driven to the clinic, he overhears a broadcast on the radio, which gives him a few of the answers he's searching for. Mm-hmm. He finds out that he was unconscious for about a day and a half.
Yeah.
During that time, volcanic gas from the swamp suddenly erupted and killed everyone in the town. The news reports that many close relatives of the victims had suddenly fallen dead from illness or have committed suicide in the hours after the disaster while calling out Oyashiro-sama's name. Keiichi can't handle this news, and the combination of both the emotional stress along with his physical injuries cause him to go into a seizure. As he begins to pass out, with medical personnel desperately trying to save his life, he takes small comfort in the fact that he hasn't heard any footsteps following him since he regained consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he starts to, what's it called? What are those? What's that fucking tool where they shock your heart? They jumpstart your heart.
Oh, a defibrillator?
Yeah, they use they're using a defibrillator on him. They're like, of all the people that have died, let at least this guy, like, let him survive. right? Like that's what like the doctor is saying.
Yep.
And like the dude like jump starts his heart and like or tries to, and then Keiichi's just like just passes out.
And this also isn't mentioned in the recap that I have pulled up, but there's a point too where Keiichi looks out the window and he sees soldiers just piling bodies.
Yeah,
like they're just produce.
they're throwing bodies away, and he's like, "What are you doing? Those are people. Why are you throwing them like that? Handle them with care or whatever." And then they're like, "You're right." Like they start to feel bad because they're like, "Fuck yeah, these are people. Why are we treating them this way?"
Yep.
And then they start loading them on properly.
And this is the point where the chapter ends, more or less. There is an epilogue scene, picks up 20 years after the incident.
Yeah.
A cassette interview is discovered with, or a cassette tape is discovered that contains an interview with Keiichi, and it's discovered among the effects of a deceased investigative journalist. Keiichi survived his injuries on the aftermath of what is now termed to be the Great Hinamizawa disaster, but attempted suicide shortly afterwards, and as such, he was deferred to a mental hospital as a result. Keiichi was known to have refused to make any public statements about what he witnessed on the day of the disaster, so how the journalist was able to get an interview with him is unknown, as is the exact time that the interview was recorded.
They speculate that he broke into like his room.
Yep.
And this is the recording of I think you mentioned a deceased reporter who died out at sea while fishing.
Yep.
Like they specifically say that or something along those lines. And this
Absolutely.
was in when did this happen? Was it 1999?
They did not list a date.
It was in the 90s for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean like potentially, yeah.
Yeah, they meant. I think it was like in 19XX. It was something like that, or sorry, 1990X. I think is what they had. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Right. During the interview, the journalist points out that Keiichi's survival doesn't seem to gel with the volcanic gas story, as by all means the riverbank that he had laid out on at the time should have been hit by the gas first due to its proximity to the swamp. Due
to how heavy it was as well. It was a very dense air.
And as he keeps pressing Keiichi on this fact, Keiichi gets more and more annoyed, and he eventually curses the journalist to die in water, which is eventually what happens. The journalist would indeed end up dying in a drowning incident about 7 years after recording the interview.
Yeah. He ends up saying something along the lines of like, "You don't believe that I can curse people? Hell, maybe I still have some left in me. Hell, maybe I'll curse you now. Why don't I curse you right now? You will die in the future, but you won't die like by committing suicide or something. What about you? How about you drown? You will drown out at sea. Yeah, you're gonna drown out at sea." And then like that's when the interview cuts off. And you'd think, if this were to happen to you, would you ever set foot in the ocean?
No, I would never go back to the ocean.
I would live in a landlocked country and never leave it. I would go to the mountains of all things.
Yep.
as high up from anyway.
And then as for Keiichi, all that we know about this interview is that after it took place, he died very shortly after. And the only thing that was released to the public was that it was a sudden fever that killed him.
I think some of his final words were like, "The footsteps are back," or some shit.
Something like that.
Something along those lines.
And that is the true end of Tatarigoroshi.
What a fucking chapter. like all this shit comes out of nowhere. We have a whole chapter about child abuse for 70% of it, for 80-90% of it, and then out of nowhere, oh, by the way, she's been found dead. Oh, by the way, he's been found dead. By the way, this guy's missing. Also, this guy committed suicide. Also, Rika's corpse is being pecked at by fucking crows right now.
Also, a sulfuric gas eruption.
Yeah, yeah, that too. By the way, what? Like, where the fuck did all of this come out of? Like, everything just starts. It's like a domino effect that just gets worse and worse and worse.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how the fuck did all of this shit happen?
So
But
before the whole like, I guess before the whole ending sequence with like finding Satoko and the getting pushed off the bridge, what kind of theories were you crafting up to that point?
right. So what I thought. Well, let me go through my theories, I guess, because I've got them here. So we've got the Watanagashi Festival is a trigger that changes or warps time/dimensions. Because at this point, they were discussing the event, like when they were talking about what Keiichi was doing at the festival, they were describing the events that happened both in chapter 1 and chapter 2. But in chapter 1, they only mentioned the events that happened in chapter 1, which is just them going to the food shacks. Or that's when they were playing to try to get like the best, like whoever got the best item from the from the shooting gallery would win. And that's when Keiichi was able to get the giant teddy bear. Chapter 2 was about the food, if I recall. And Keiichi was ranting and raving and how he was able to convince people that the takoyaki without taco was like fucking great anyway, because the guy put his whole heart and soul into it because of the prices of octopus having gone up. So I was like, what the fuck? Like, those events didn't happen. But apparently they did. So that was one thing. The other one is just more of like all the question arcs are linked. The events that happen, the events all happen, and we're only shown what occurs on certain days, but not all days during the summer months. Meaning that, like, if this whole series takes place, let's say during June, chapter 1 only shows us like 7 days that happen throughout the month of June, but it's not like, the 1st to the 7th. It's like, maybe the 1st, the 3rd, the 15th, the 19th, the 30th, or some shit. While chapter 2 covers the other days. Chapter 3 covers the other days that were not covered. And chapter 4, I assume, would cover the other days as well. So that's like another thing that I think might be happening. Then there's Keiichi hallucinates a lot. He actually went to the festival and just fantasized about killing Satoko's uncle during the events. That's my third
touched
theory.
On earlier.
Yeah. And then my final theory, which I think might be the more probable one, was that Oyashiro-sama's curse is real. It allowed Keiichi to have a split personality / body, as it possessed someone else to perform the killing, or to have that person be at the festival, while the other body was busy. So one persona was at the festival, one persona was killing. And this results in in a survival after asking for everything to end, as he was now the vessel to carry on like Oyashiro-sama's will. I think that like since Rika died, and she was supposed to be the reincarnation of Oyashiro-sama, maybe because she wasn't really, doing her job, and Keiichi was actively trying to appease him, that maybe he chose him as like his new successor for a while. And if this is true, then maybe Takano was possessed by Oyashiro-sama at some point after after she's like, you and I never left or never met, and left to go relocate that body. I think that's what could have happened. Or maybe she thought, if someone saw me with this kid and they can link it back to this place and they can find his fucking body because I just found it, I should fucking move it somewhere else. And I assume she already had like a whole excavation kit like in her trunk. If Tomitake's body wasn't, or like right next to Tomitake's body, and she just like dug the body up, dragged him somewhere else, maybe further up the mountain, and then just like buried him somewhere else. Those are my main theories, at least for this chapter, because it's fucking something. Like, I still have no idea, like, why Rika dies. Like, that just came out of nowhere. Like, unless I missed a heavy implication of it. Did Keiichi curse her at some point?
Keiichi did not curse Rika at any point during this chapter.
Yeah, it's the fucking, it's so weird. But yeah, anyway, that's
I think that's pretty much the only death. Yeah, it's the only death where Keiichi did not curse somebody.
Just came out of nowhere.
So, and then at this point, I mean, like with the volcanic gas explosion, what are your thoughts on that?
For sure, Keiichi triggered that. I talked about it during the stream, but he threw a bike into the swamp, and I believe it took exactly 3 days for the bike to reach the bottom of the swamp. It was implied, or we were told that at the bottom of the swamp was either like just streams of lava and or hot springs. So imagine you have a bike that's on, like it's turned on, and you shove it into a fucking swamp and it sinks, and then it collides with either a hot spring or just literal like lava or magma, whatever it might be, one of the two. I think it's lava. And it explodes, causing some fucking reaction in the earth, resulting in like all these like bubbles to appear. Maybe either that or the explosion fucked shit up geologically, that it just caused this like miasma to all of a sudden start hitting like the village. My guess is that that the bike exploded, and that just mixed with shit, and then that just killed everyone.
So let me ask you this then. So the last well, not the last curse, because he also cursed the interviewer, but one of the last curses of the main story was Keiichi cursing the whole village. And then everyone had died, obviously, in the gas explosion.
Yeah.
If you're explaining the way the gas explosion happened with like a human element, so it was Keiichi throwing the bike into the swamp.
Yeah.
Does that mean that it's an exception, or can all of the other curses be explained with human actions?
It could be one of the other. It could be that again, Oyashiro-sama's curse is real. That he's actually like now the descendant. For all we know, Marika died that previous night. Because I mean, they found her dead in the morning. For all we know, she could have been dead for 2 days, and no one knew. So it was either that or and once like Keiichi actually got his Death Note powers maybe at some point after Rika was dead, or everything was just a huge coincidence, like literally just a huge coincidence. Like with Takano probably being because Takano dies no matter what every time. Same with Tomitake. So Takano kills Tomitake. Takano gets fucking. She probably had to relocate the body. And then she was found by the S group and fucking burned alive in the in an oil like drum, and taken out. Not sure how Oishi and Sensei would have fucking gone missing or committed suicide though. That I'm not sure of. But it could have also been that Oyashiro-sama could have just been like, well, you already threw a bike down there, might as well use that. Fuck it. They all die by gas. That'll be easy. And then, But I'm pretty sure that whether Keiichi did that on purpose or not, I'm pretty sure that for sure was an easy catalyst to just kill everyone. Like to easily kill everyone.
Because they're
sorry, you cut off for a bit.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can.
Okay, cool. So for me, I don't really like the idea of having exceptions. So I would like to think that it's either all like it's all due to the curse and like Keiichi's ability to curse people. Um, or I'd like to, if we're gonna start explaining things like the motorbike, we should try to figure out how each death slots into a human, like a human perpetuated killing.
Right. These are all hypotheticals, by the way, because I still don't know
Of
if the
course.
curse is real or not. If magic exists in this world, then yeah, then it was all premeditated by Yashiro-sama. And he just he just like, you know, pulled the string so that all this shit would happen, all in his name,
Right.
of course. And if not, then yeah, we'd have to figure out how. Like we can at least account for Tomitake being killed by Takano, Takano being killed by the Yakuza, and then we just, I guess in chapter 4 we would find out what would probably lead Iria Sensei to commit suicide, maybe rape allegations or some shit, I don't know. And then I don't know, maybe it was Oishi-san. Oishi-san came to him, and then someone threatened Oishi, and I mean, we don't know if Oishi's dead. We know he's gone. Maybe he went into hiding because of the other Yakuza boss, the one that came into the station in the last chapter, that was like, who the fuck's in charge? Why the fuck was there a body like found in like my prefecture? Why am I being interrogated by cops? All that shit that happened at the end of chapter 2. And he's like, oh, well, I'll let you know when the guy gets back. And then the chief tells Oishi-san to get the fuck out of there. So like that could explain like those if it were, say, a human element and not not Oyashi.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, no. So the one thing that I thought at the end of reading this chapter for the first time was Coach obviously very, very much so cares about all of the kids in town.
Yeah.
He cares about everybody in Hinamizawa because he's like the only doctor there. But he specifically cares about the kids because he knows that some of them have had like rough upbringings.
Yeah.
And Keiichi, to him, seems delusional and crazy. And Keiichi like ran away. He slipped. Like he skipped town. And I think Irie was probably thinking about how he felt like he was maybe powerless to help Keiichi, and that's what and by extension Satoko, and maybe that's what caused him to commit suicide.
I don't think that would happen because he seems rational enough to have been like, maybe he went home, and he would have like gone to check with his, just like he would have just called his parents,
right?
Like, hey, is Keiji home? And they would have been like, yeah, he got home a while ago. You know, or in the morning, like, hey, is Keiji home? And then the mom would have been like, yeah, he's passed out. You know,
they would have come straight there. But yeah, no, it's really interesting because this is like this ending is really trying to force you into thinking more about the curse, thinking more like, because at this point you still have so many questions about whether or not the curse is real, whether or not these could be human killings, like all sorts of things are running through your head, and it's asking you to think maybe a little bit deeper about that.
Yeah, he's pulling the Mion Shion thing. Like, he's trying to get you to really fucking think about. He's trying to like put you in one camp by this point.
Yep.
So I'm still leaning more towards the fact that the curse might be real, and that the curse makes people act up.
Do you speaking of curses, do you have a little bit more time to stay on stream?
Yeah, we can keep going.
Can you pull up the game 3 mini game?
Yeah, let me bring that up actually. Where's the old
This is the one because there is a tiny, minuscule amount of characterization left in this. But I think you'll enjoy the mini game more than anything this time around.
All right, so which one was it? It was we've got SFD.
This one you're going to be doing EDD.
Okay. Are you sure you want to play DDD? Yep. Debiru. Okay. Does difficulty matter?
It shouldn't, no.
Alright, let's go with easy. You want to read the story? Nope.
What do you mean, nope?
Rena's helping out at Angel Mart again. Sadako and Rika are both coming to help. It's looking to be a great day. Huh? Oh no, not again. Oh, Rena, it's terrible. What's wrong, Sadako? The Deviru are descending upon this diner. Oh no, those devils will freeze this restaurant solid. We'll never serve another hot meal ever again. Frozen dinners for every meal are definitely not tasty. Sadako, Rika, let's teach these restaurant crashers a lesson. Well, if we must, we must. Go fight and win. Help Rena and Rika knock out the advancing Deviru with bouncing Satoko balls. Or with a bouncing Satoko ball. Lose all your Satoko balls or let the Deviru reach Rena and it's game over. So left click moves Rena up and Rika down. Okay. Right click or tab is an instant you reflect a Satoko ball. Sorry. Right click or tab, the instant you reflect the Satoko ball to use a special attack. Okay. Attack will depend on whether Rena or Rika get the ball. If they overlap, Rena gets priority. Holding down the tab key before the ball connects will absolutely guarantee a special attack. Go, fight, win. If you lose a Satoko ball, left click as the next ball is put into play to gain an additional ball. You can left click repeatedly as the Satoko ball flashes up to 8 maximum. But watch out, the Deviru will advance a step for each extra ball you get. Alright, let's start the game. Huh? Okay, I see. Why the Jack Frosts?
Honestly, who knows? And it's the Block 5 in particular. It's like the one from Soul Hackers.
Oh.
And this one's probably the closest to like resembling an actual game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you remember, the first one was Rena Punch, where you have to click Rena's punches.
Yeah.
And then the second one was just clicking all the Sophies on the screen.
Oh my god. Go fight, win.
Yeah, I love these CGs so much. And the fact that he went out of his way to like Ryukishi himself drew all of these jacks is just kind of funny.
Yeah. Because we do have the lemon jacks, we've got the melon jacks, we've got the cola jacks, we've got Black Frost.
Yep.
Oh.
And what's even weirder, I guess, is that Devilot from Cyberbots is also in this one.
Yeah. Uh-oh. Oh no.
Closer.
Yep.
You got this, I believe in you.
That's it. Yeah. Warning. Hey, here she is. Oh no! She can counter.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no. Oh. Go fight, win. Ah, fuck.
I'd like to imagine that they're squishing Satoko down into a ball every time they do this.
Yeah. Oh. Ah, so close. Ah, you bitch. Get him, Rika. Fuck. Yeah, imagine coming into the stream at this point. Wait, I got her.
We just talked about all of these intense, like, child abuse
Moments,
scenarios.
and now we have this. Now we're just playing fucking what's it called? Breakout, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I got her. Okay, so we were still hitting her.
Yeah.
Okay, well that was weird.
What really makes me pretty sad is that they had also planned for a Puyo Puyo clone to be in
that
chapter
would have been
5.
cool as hell.
Scrap. Yeah.
That would have been so fucking cool. Then a 1. It would have been funnier if it said win. Then a win. Alright, epilogue. Newsflash, newsflash. Devlon has been defeated by Irena of Angel Mort. So she beat Devilot, you say? Not half bad. Irena of Angel Mort, a fine challenger. Are these two who's? Yet Angel Mort will bow down before the superior might of the Sky Temple. Summon to me our Knight Templar, Mayu Mayu. As you wish. Enjoy your brief moment of peace, Irena. To be continued. Is that two? Is that a two who? Are they two who's? What are they?
No, so I believe they're from other Leaf visual novels.
Huh.
And then now if you go back to DDD, you should have an option to do BBB.
Yep. Play BBB, do you dare? Oh, it's them!
Yeah, it's the Soul Brothers.
The Soul Brothers. Oh. Baza Baru Bosta. I don't know. Like we said, under no circumstances does this have anything to do with the main story, and please disregard any similarities to the early minier game, Devi 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 Do. Alright, this is the scene where Keiichi was looking out onto the town after like Satogo and Rika went missing or whatever. In chapter 2.
So if you remember, this is a continuation of the Soul Brothers arc.
Yeah.
So the last time, well, the first time he got was chapter 1, yeah, but the second time we didn't get to do it on stream because the install is bugged, I think.
Yeah.
But Kei reunites with the Soul Brothers, Tommy and Cloud, learns some juicy information. Rena has been working at Angel Mort and is wearing the waitress uniform, meaning this is their last chance to take some pictures. So
yeah.
Kei is given Tommy's camera. Yep. And so now, after getting into those hijinks, we're at this point,
right
on the hill.
A certain month, day, and time. Who do they shrine? Ah, what a lovely day. Oh no, Rena's here. Hi, Rena. Sorry, but I can't give you those photographs. Ooh. Oh, right, the photographs. I'd forgotten about those. Never mind that now, we're in trouble. Shion's taken over Angel Mort and declared that flatter-chested girls have to obey bigger-breasted girls. She's established a bustocracy. I managed to get away somehow. But she's caught Satoko and Rika-chan and okay, please help rescue them. What? Bustocracy? Disenfranchising flat-chested girls like Rika and Satoko? Why, Shion, I'll let them go. You've gone too far this time, and I'm not about to let you have your way. Okay, Rena, I'll be sure to rescue Rika and Satoko. Wait for me, Rika and Satoko. Your big brother Kei is coming to save you. What? But this is Shion we're talking about. Sure, I came here acting all tough, but considering how she's able to lead Mion around by the nose, just how could I hope to oppose her? A wimpy line like that doesn't suit you, Kei. That's right, Kei. The moment you lose heart, you've lost everything. Hey, Tommy, Claudio. We heard all about it from Rena. Why treat us like strangers, Kei? After all, we're brothers of the soul. Soul brothers, That's so stupid. Though born far apart in time, we shall meet death together. Let us combine our powers and fight. Yeah. Tommy, Cloud, you're right. Nothing can compare to our mighty triad. Alright, listen up, Shion. If we must chafe beneath the yoke of bustocracy, then yours will be the first pressed against the wall now that the revolution's come. What? Why, hello, Mr. K. Goodness, you're out of breath. Is something wrong? Your smile won't fool me today, Shion. I heard you've declared bustocracy and are using it as justification for having your way with Rika and Satoko. Now quit this foolishness and let those girls go. Now, Mr. K, I'm afraid you're overreacting to the situation. And besides, you love big breasts, don't you? I kind of like you too, you know, so come over to my side and I'd be happy to let you cop a me. What? How about it, Mr. K? Won't you cooperate with me? What? I get an option? Let's go with no. Yes, it's true that I do like big breasts, I admit it. But look here, Shion. I may love big breasts, but I adore flat chests. Based? Bro is real as fuck. Flat chests are nice too, you know. They have their own wonderful qualities. And so I find your oppression of flat chests by big breasts to be completely unforgivable. Defiler of souls. I knew you'd say that, Kay. Well said, we agree. Flat chests is also best. Now, Shion, I demand you dissolve this bustocracy and release Rika-chan and Satoko at once. Do you now? Sure, you may try your best to depose me, however... Do you really think you can manage that when you can't even defeat my sister? Strong though you may be, it is nothing against the power of our souls united. Well, in that case, I'll just have to call on my friends too. Hey, it's showtime, Mukuru. What? This kitty Mukuru may have odd markings, but he's my best friend in the whole world. He'll happily gobble up a human or two to make for my sake. What a cat.
Before we continue, this Mukuru is a tiger from the Utawareru Mono series of visual novels.
Yeah, I thought it would be a tiger. I mean, it doesn't look like a cat. What the heck? That's supposed to be a cat? Forget the odd markings. Since when do cats get that big? Just what do you mean by gobble up? Well, do you still dare to defy me? Bring it on, I say. I've dodged all of Venena's punches, so there's no way that beast will get me. Tell me, Cloud, let's go. Yeah! K-balls? K. Oh, no. Sorry, I was looking away for a moment.
And of course you're playing as the Soul Brothers.
Right, but not K.
No, because he doesn't have a sprite.
Right. Oh no, he got for a second.
Not even frozen, it's just Mukuru.
Yeah, he's just holding them down. Your attacks are futile. It's Muda. No, no. It is not Muda. Was it? What does Dio say?
It's Muda.
Yeah, it is Muda.
Yeah.
It's Muda. No. I fucking forget. It can't be. All of our attacks have perfect speed and timing. How could they be completely ineffective? This is bad. At this rate, we're done for. I'm too young to die. Sure. Tommy, Cloud, Kay, why are true men like you giving into such a simple challenge? Who in the world are you? They call me the man with the hands of a god. Dr. Erie. Dr. Erie. But please call me Erie for short, Kay. Now then, what are you three just standing there for? Get moving and fight. But Erie, none of her attacks work on her. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Listen up. You have forgotten something very important. When at rest, big breasts do nothing more than produce a large chest. However, if that girl should move up and down, her chest would end up moving in the opposite direction, courtesy of inertia, Newton's first law of motion. Girls jump up, chest goes down. Girls come down, chest bounces up. Up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. That dynamism dazzles our eyes and excites us. Put simply, big boobs bounce. Having forgotten that, you have no way to win against Shion. It isn't enough to attack from the side. To beat the bust, you must strike vertically and shake things up. Huh? So that's how. Thanks, Yuri. Now I get it. Here's how it works. Left click at the moment the K-ball hits Shion to set the focus point, then do another set to shake her vertically. The greater the distance between the two sets, the greater the tremor, and the greater the effect as well. Okay, so we left click right when the K-ball hits Shion. Got it. Oh, Keiichi's the ball. Right. Also, firing off one of our special moves should do a set automatically. Let's get Puppet. So it's right click. Oh, sorry, it's left click twice then. But just have some distance. Okay. But pay attention to how many balls are left, since there won't be a chance to add more when you lose one. Roger that. Alright, Tommy, Crowdo, let's go. No way we're losing to you this time, Shion. Go, fight, and win. So stupid. Ready, go.
You got this, I believe in you.
Okay. I thought I said it. I think I did. Jet stream attack. What? A jet stream attack? Insane.
Yeah, there's your set.
Okay.
And if you get as much distance as possible, you get a bigger shake. Level 5 rattle.
What was that? I don't know if that's the better level or not. I
think level 5 is the best, yeah.
Okay. Well, I need to somehow get her to shake again. But it's hard to get the set ball for some reason.
Yeah. Timing on it is a little weird. I think if you're holding left click as it approaches her, that should be good.
Okay.
Maybe.
Nope. I'm fucked here. Well, let's try again.
I guess not.
Let's see. Nope. What are we doing? Sabotaging myself. Oh no. Okay. I guess I just have to actually get good. Okay, so we set it. And now I just gotta, like...
It's in the middle, so you gotta go up at the very top or the very bottom if you can.
Fuck, no. Oh, I failed. Oh no. The tiger got us. Game over. Well, let's see what happens if I kill continue. Okay, so it lets me actually try again. We'll do it one more time. If not, we'll show off the other ending where Kay's like, alright, sure. I guess I'll just mash click when it goes to her.
Yeah, that's probably for the best.
There we go. And then, like... like this. Level 7 roll. That's it. That's what the bounce is supposed to be. That's fucking funny.
So I guess so, yeah. Level 5 I thought was the best, but level 7 is possible.
Okay, set. And now... Okay, so I'm just gonna be mashing tab. That was a level 5 shake. Okay, we're about to lose a ball. That's fine. Okay, set. And then we're gonna lose another one. Oh, level 1 shimmy. What? Okay. And now we do it like this. A level 3 shake. Oh no. Is that enough? Oh, I ran out of balls. Okay, I gotta do it one last time because I got pretty close.
I see. Using a special attack uses up one of your balls. Yeah.
So fucking dumb. Oh, great. I didn't even set it. Okay. So there goes a ball. Yeah, it does use it.
Probably best to just go for regular clicks as much as you can, anyway.
Yeah, but that's a problem. Okay. Oh, fuck. No! Okay, let's try.
Yeah, I'm a little behind on the stream, but yeah, no.
Okay. I think I kind of got it. That was a rattle. Oh no, we lose. Okay, I think that's enough. I'm gonna quit and then just see what happens if Keiichi agrees. Yeah, I assume something else happens.
Kinda, yeah.
Let's see. So BBB. Say BBB.
And I think you can hold control to skip through.
Care to see the story? Yes. Yeah, you're right. Because we're soul brothers. Won't you cooperate with me? Sure. And now Keiichi cops a feel. Mew. Alright. So what happens afterwards then? Do you remember?
So basically, when the Soul Brothers defeat Shion, she confesses that she only took over Angel Mort because someone else ordered her to. The group wonders who she could possibly be referring her to, only for a shadowy figure, so basically a silhouetted sprite, to appear in the background that looks like the outline of Takano.
So Takano was the one that started this bustocracy.
He is, yeah.
And I assume Strolling's for chapter 4.
Strolling is chapter 4, and it's the final time we will get to meet with the Soul Brothers.
So fucking dumb. I'm gonna close the minigame out. My god, that was so fucking stupid.
So with that out of the way, now we have fully experienced all of chapter 3.
Right. What a fucking chapter.
As a whole package, I think that this is probably my favorite of the question arcs, and it's easily one of my favorite arcs, like, overall.
Oh wait, well, yeah, okay, keep going.
Sorry, no, that was basically it. Yeah,
I thought you were muted for a sec, but you weren't.
Oh, okay, my bad. Yeah, no, this was as a whole package, this was easily one of the better arcs. It's my favorite question arc for sure. Probably one of my favorite arcs. It's up there. Because it gives you a lot to work with, and yeah, just I know I say this at the end of every discussion, but I genuinely cannot wait for you to start the next arc.
No, I mean, this was a very, very, very good arc, because again, it started off very like wholesomely, and then it gets very graphic. It gets outrageously graphic. It's crazy.
Very fast.
Yeah, it 0 to 100, like by the 4th section, like or by the 4th chapter. It's like, what the fuck? It's insane how crazy it gets. But yeah, no, and then like with the ending was also just fucking weird. which like what the fuck? It literally keeps you on edge. Because it's like, what the hell? How are you? What? Like, what's coming next? Like, what the fuck is going to happen in chapter 4? And this was a chapter that was just, like, kind of written and somehow implemented to kind of tie things together. I don't know. I don't know the purpose of chapter 4. I don't know what's going to happen in chapter 4. I don't know what to expect in chapter 4. I don't know if this is what's going to show us how Rika got fucking dismembered. Because... Because the only other thing that could have happened was the events of chapter 2, where Mion and Shion had their split personality. Like, Keiichi throughout this entire time was probably still dating Shion. And, like, they still went through to, like... Well, he didn't go to, like, the storehouse with her, but, like, that was the only thing that differed, maybe. Mion still somehow, or whoever was actually, like, who really survived that day, was the one that ended up killing Rika, like, by dismembering her. Because at the end of chapter 2, like, we find out that, like, Rika and Satoko's body were, like, found fucking, like, tortured and dismembered or whatever inside the well in, like, Shion's bunker. So she was gonna, like, kill them anyway. So maybe she just got to Rika and maybe just wasn't going to touch Satoko because Keiichi was, like, you know, being nice about it, or was, like, being nice to her. I don't fucking know. There was one other thing that I forgot to mention. Satoko mentioned that she snuck into the storehouse when she was younger. It could be that her being there was the noises that we heard in chapter 2 when we went there. That when we were in the, you know, in the deeper bowels of the storage like room, that when we heard the bouncing, that it was Satoko from the past trying to get out and not being able to get out. And that's what we heard, like, the jumping, or, like, because she was on the roof, like, of the building. She was hiding up there, so it could have been that it was her footsteps that we were hearing. That's something that I forgot to mention. That might be related. That may not be related. I don't know. But it's something that I'm gonna keep in the back of my mind just in case. You know, get the old noggin jogging that way. But we'll see. We'll see. For all we know, that gets explained in chapter 4. I don't fucking know.
When do you think you will have time to start chapter 4?
It'll be after we're done with Hypnospace Outlaw. Like, right now, that's what we're streaming. We're about to reach we're about half of the way through Hypnospace. We're gonna reach the second half, which I was gonna hold off. Like, I was gonna, you know, start the second part of the game, but I'm like, you know what? Let's hold off on it. So I was just doing some final readings, and then yeah, next time we might be done with Hypnospace next week, and then we'll start Higurashi the week after. So if we don't start Higurashi this month, then for sure. Oh no, we should be able to start it this month no matter what. I forgot January has 5 weeks, which is crazy. Like, this January has 5 weeks. Yeah, it's insane. So yeah, for sure we're starting it. If not the week after next week, then the last week of January. But then we get to start chapter 4, and then that's gonna be Kudeiji.
Kudeiji, Daigo.
Yeah, and then I don't know what the fuck is gonna happen afterwards. I guess I start getting answers. I hope. Maybe.
No commento.
So
look, all I'm saying is, if you got maybe this is too much, but if you got all the answers in the answer arcs, then there wouldn't need to be 4. There would just be 1.
Right. Well, yes. So that's why, like, I assume that, you know, chapter 5 is gonna give me, like, a crumb of info, and then chapter 6 is gonna give you a little bit more, and it's like, if you figured it out by now, you're a genius. And chapter 3 is gonna be like, well, if you haven't, here you go. And chapter 4 is like, if you really haven't gotten it, this is your last chance to really get it. And then there you go. That's what I assume might happen. Wasn't there a chapter 9 too?
It's called Higurashi Rei, which is gratitude.
Yeah.
It was released after after the ending, the chapter 8. And it serves as
It's a bonus arc.
There's 3 arcs that are included with it. The main one serves as an epilogue to the whole core 8 arcs, and it was written by Ryukishi, so it's considered a part of the main story. And then there are 2 side arcs. One of them is
Matsuri and Umineko. No?
Huh?
No, wait. It is Sai Koroshi, Hirukoashi, Batsukoishi.
Yeah, so Batsukoishi is interesting because there was a Higurashi fighting game called Higurashi Daybreak. And that was released on PC. It was also a doujin game, of course. But Ryukishi actually wrote the story for Daybreak. And he realized that Daybreak was like a 3D fighting game.
Yeah, I'm seeing some images of it right now. Not
so
too
he realized
much,
that
but
not everybody would be able to run it on their PCs because of like how much more intensive it was than Higurashi. So he adapted the story into a visual novel. So that's Batsukoishi. And then Hirukoashi, I read it, but I'm kind of blanking on it. Let me look real quick. I'll be your Googler, so you don't have to look at anything that could
I
be
only looked at
spoilers.
Batsu because I'm like, it's a fighting game. No fucking way it spoils anything. I mean, it doesn't. I think I'm seeing like a girl with green hair and like pigtails, but I don't know who that is. And I don't think I think she's just like a guest character.
Oh wait, I think that's right. So Hirukoashi is the fighting game arc. Batsukoishi is something different, and that is right. Batsukoishi is the I actually don't want to say. I won't tell you yet because it is kind of important.
So right. Sorry, what I was looking at was Daybreak. Sorry, I was looking at Daybreak. Yeah. That's what I was looking at.
Yeah, I figured. But yeah, no. Batsukoishi is just an extra thing that he had written during the the middle of the development of Higurashi. Is where I'll leave it.
Is it like just a supplemental thing, or is it just like some bonus shit for after chapter 1 or after the first arc? Or
telling you like the nature of what it is would in itself be a spoiler. Okay. That's why I'm refraining from comment.
No, I guess we'll see when I get to it, because I mean we're gonna be starting like I said, we're gonna be getting to the answers arc, and after the answers arc we're gonna get today, and then we're gonna get to Matsuri, and then we get to Umineko. But that's after like let's see, because we're starting Kai soon, so it'll be Meyakashi, Tsumi Horoboshi, Minagoroshi, and Matsuri Bayashi. Then Sai Koroshi, Hirukoashi, Batsukoishi, and then the PS2 bonus arcs with Taraimawashi, Tsukyotoshi, and Myotsukushi. Before we get to Umineko. It's like we're doing all of it.
Correct.
Like everything.
What I will say is I've been looking at my thing, my release order list lately, and what I sent you is still the correct like 1-to-1, the 1-to-1 release date timeline.
Yeah.
Once you get to Umineko, I would highly recommend sticking with Umineko until you finish it. Even though there are some Higurashi bonus arcs that come out like in between the Umineko ones. And I say that specifically because Umineko is going to ask you to think about things a lot, and it would kind of suck to have to go between like ping-ponging between the two. Yeah.
Okay. Then we'll do I guess I'll do the bonus arcs and stuff like that before starting Umineko.
Oh, you can do that too, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, there's not that many, right? Because it's like we've got Umineko,
so it's
the Umineko questions arc parts 1, 2, 3, then the answers arc 1, 2, 3, and then we've got some other Umineko stuff afterwards, and then we get to Higamana, and some other shit. So I think before starting that, I might try the the DS stuff, the the DS bonus arcs. Are those specifically related to the question and answers arc, or is this like some other story?
So the reason, and this is kind of the reason why I say to separate it from your Umineko playthrough, is also because it is the DS bonus arcs are, they fall into two categories. There are 4 arcs that are called the advanced storyline, and it's 2 question arcs with 2 answer arcs, but they are completely separate from, mostly completely separate from the core Higurashi story. It's basically, without giving away too much, because you're at a point where you can at least be introduced to the first one in terms of like story progression. First one is called Somei Utsushi, and Somei Utsushi is about Mayor Kimiyoshi's granddaughter, Natsumi, and how she moved from Hinamizawa to, I think it's Tokyo. It's just a big city.
Yeah, she moved away.
She moved to a big city, and her life in that city as like an outsider, because like we get kind of the flip side where Keiichi is an outsider in Hinamizawa, and she's a Hinamizawa an outsider in the big city. So it's kind of like, it's kind of cool. It's a little bit of duology, but there's
interesting,
that story. There are 2 question arcs for that timeline, and then 2 answer arcs. After that point, there is, so you saw Miyotsukushi is one of the PS2 bonus arcs. They rewrote Miyotsukushi slightly, called Miyotsukushi Omote for the DS, which includes new scenes that are related to the DS version, and it cuts some old scenes out. But then they added Miyotsukushi Ura, which is like the true final everything, both the main and the advanced storylines coming together and ending all of their problems in one go.
Oh boy.
But then after that, there is, I think, one other arc in the DS games, which is I think it's Koto Hogushi. And Koto Hogushi is like a prequel to the entire thing, like DS arc and regular core arcs.
Oh my god. Jesus fuck. This is so much. This is like when someone asks you like, hey, I want to get into Shin Megami Tensei, where do I start? And then you have to tell them not to play the first game because it's really old and they won't get it, and you don't want them to not play the game, so you tell them to start at part 3, and then they really like the 3rd game, and like, what should I play next? Like, we should probably play the 4th game. And then they play the 4th game, and then they see so much cool shit, and then they're like, I think I should check out some of the old games, and then they finally play like Megami Tensei 1 and 2 for like the Famicom. And then they see all the shit that SMT4 references from Megami Tensei 1, like the Minotaur fight, which is like the first boss, and then like the second boss as well, and then how they reveal some stuff that happens after the second boss fight. Because like when I got to that point, I was like, holy shit! Good thing I went in order, because this hits so much different that everyone else that I know that's only played like 3 and 4 and they've never played Megami Tensei, the second they go to Megami Tensei, if they give it a shot, they're gonna be like, holy fuck, this is just like an SMT4, even though it's backwards. Anyway, but yeah, it's just so much. Like I've mentioned it before, it's like 80 or something titles, like just in the list that you gave me, and they're so fucking, I still have no idea what the hell Rose Gun Days are.
Oh, that's actually it's not really related to Higurashi or Umineko, but it's another work that Ryukishi wrote. It's written in the same engine, and it's I don't really know much about it myself, but the good news is that so it's had a fan translation for a long time, but Manga Gamer just picked it up for an HD remaster on PC, and it should be coming out this year.
I mean, but I probably get to it in 2026.
Yeah, eventually.
I'll get to it.
One thing that I want to add on is between, and it's very short, but between Umineko Matsuri, between Higurashi Matsuri and Umineko Part 1, or I guess in your case it would be DS Part 1, because you want to do the DS stuff first. Yeah. There was a book that Ryukishi published called Kuradashi, and I'll send you all the links and everything. It's only about an hour long in total.
I'm gonna have to read a book on stream now. Great.
No. The reason it's significant and kind of cool is because somebody took Kuradashi is a collection of short stories that were either cut or like changed. So like I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head, but like there's a scene where like, hey, what would have happened if Keiichi had said this instead of that during this one scene?
You're
and
right,
like,
it's just a bike that looks like Tomitake-san's. I guess it's not really his bike, huh?
it's
Yeah,
stuff
that's
like
right,
that.
Keiichi.
But somebody took that book and actually adapted it into visual novel form with all the sprites and
Oh, that's cool.
music and everything. Yeah.
Here it was like, I'll just read the book and we'll just do a little audiobook session. But no, I guess we got it.
Yeah. And it's short enough that you could easily do just one stream and be done. But yeah, that's something that's pretty cool. That just came out in 2024. So
that's
even though the book
cool.
came out in like 2005.
It's just Keiichi being rational. Like that's it. That's the whole visual novel. It's every single like red herring or every like bait, like all the hooks, and Keiichi just being like, nah. I want to enjoy my days of peace.
But yeah, if you stick to doing DS first, then it'll look something like, you do Higurashi, you do Rei, you do PS2, you do Kuradashi, then you do the DS arcs, then Umineko.
Yeah.
And then from Umineko, you actually get to do the first Umineko bonus arc disc, which is Tsubasa. Then Higanbana, which is just a two-parter. It's fairly short. Then Umineko Hane, which is more bonus arcs, which you could probably save Higanbana until after you do those bonus arcs as well. But yeah, Higanbana, Rose Guns Days, 07 Theater, which is great. It's a there's some history there, but basically it's like he would do these things called 07th Party, where he would like talk about the works and like just talk to fans and things like that. For 07th Party 2 and 3, he released very, very small, like less than an hour long visual novel discs that are all of his characters meeting up in like kind of like a conference room and talking about their experiences and things like that. So if you like these characters a lot, it's really fun to get to like see like how would Mion interact with Beatrice, then from there you've got some stuff like some Higurashi bonus arcs, Higurashi Ho. You've got he wrote a visual novel called Iwai Hime, which is on Steam and it goes on sale all the time. I don't know if it's on GOG, which could be pretty interesting. Then from there, it's just the Switch version of Higurashi for one arc.
What?
So basically, I think we talked about it. Yeah, it's not in English. There's an English patch, but it's like most of the new content that's not in the official PC releases is all machine translated. So
right. I mean, that's fine. I should be able to like read it properly. Yeah,
but the one that I would at least recommend for that version is so Hinamizawa Bus Stop, which is the original stage play script.
Yeah, you told me about that one. That one I really want to read. Yeah,
PC version has these like weird silhouette sprites that are like color coded.
Yeah, and like they all look like their designs are all fucking different. Like Rika is like a high school student or something. I think.
Well, the ones that have different designs are like actual character designs. That's the Switch version, and they were done by the manga artist for Higurashi.
Oh, that's right. Now I gotta read the fucking mangas too. There's so much shit I gotta read.
But yeah, no, you've got a pretty clear timeline, and the nice thing is you can take. I know I call it taking a break. You're still reading, but like you can instead of like reading all of the Higurashi stuff all at once, you can take a break by reading some Umineko and then come back to it with a fresher perspective.
No, I'd have to like. I'd have to do all of Umineko. I can't just do 1 and 2 and 3 and then be like, all right, let's do Higurashi, another chapter, and then I come back to Umineko. I'm like, what the fuck happened?
Exactly. Yeah, that's why I recommend not sticking to the like strict release order.
Yeah, we'll do that for sure. We'll be doing the DS arcs once we're done with all the answers. Oh boy, that's gonna be something. Holy fuck.
Thankfully, the first couple PS2 arcs are pretty short because they're I don't want to say too much, but they're glorified bad ends, really, because the PS2 version had decisions.
Ew,
So
that's
yeah,
stupid.
it's a little interesting. But it's basically like
That's
if you make
weird.
enough wrong decisions, you end up in a situation where stuff goes wrong, and it's kind of like the way that 07th Mod ported these is that they only took the split point from when you get the bad ending, so they're not too crazy long.
So it's supposed to be. Hold on. So the PS2 arcs are like their own contained story, or is it a port of one of the older stories? But it's like, hey, there's new shit if you do things bad.
So PS2 originally was the first 7 arcs, and
Yep.
then the 8th arc, instead of being Matsuri Bayashi, it was Miyotsukushi, because it was the reason they wanted to entice people to buy it, because it's a completely different ending to the main story, and they wanted to see like how people felt about it. But along the way, as you go through these arcs, you have to, as a player, choose what to do on certain days, and depending on, like, if you stick to the path that was laid out in the original PC arcs, you're obviously going to read all of the original PC arcs, and that's totally fine. But there's certain points where, like, if you know for a fact, like, you should have done something differently, and you choose the different option, sometimes you'll just get a bad end.
I see.
And
So they want you to stick
yeah.
to the original path, but they just show you
Right.
alts if okay, I see.
So if you try to deviate from the original console arc or the original PC arc path, you'll start to get these bad endings, which there's only 2 in the PS2 version.
Keiji goes to bed early instead of staying up thinking about where he's gonna shove Sadako into like what part of his closet to keep her in, and because of that, he wakes up early and he gets run over by a truck.
The first one, I will say, is pretty boring, because it's pretty much exactly what you'd expect for a bad end. I won't say any
I
more
thought it
than
was
that.
exactly what you just said. I was gonna be like, what?
Well, no, God, I really don't want to say too much.
You don't have to elaborate on it, but I get it. So like,
Okay.
it's just a mediocre bad end, and then I guess by the second one, they're like, let's do something better.
It's a little more interesting, and it's okay, but I think that, like, you can tell that those 2 arcs in particular were only supervised by Ryukishi. They weren't written by him. And even Miyotsukushi wasn't written by him. It was just supervised. But Miyotsukushi is pretty much the star of the show for PS2. It's the one that you definitely want to read through.
Yeah, I guess we will do those as well.
Cool.
It's gonna be crazy. Like I can't wait. 2025 is gonna be the year of Higurashi for sure. At least on this channel, or for half of it.
Yeah,
because again, we're still doing other stuff.
Days.
Yeah, we've got other streams lined up for the other side. So like this is like something that would cause like career suicide, I guess, for a huge streamer, where like like I stream 4 days a week. If I didn't, or say I did and I was huge, like a huge streamer with like 10,000 followers or some shit, if I had like 1,000 concurrent people watching, and half of those people or 90% of those people did not fucking care about Higurashi, it would be career suicide. I'd be like, well, I have to stop streaming these, and I'll just have to play them on my own, and then I'll just go back to doing whatever like regular shit gets views, right? But I'm not like that. Because if anything, ironically enough, I've gotten like a lot of people just show up to my channel because of Higurashi, which is crazy, and I'm really thankful for. Like, I'm really happy that people enjoy my reaction to this, and that I guess they're sticking around for some of the other content as well while they're at it. Because it's like, here, like, this is just me, like, the Higurashi stuff is me kind of taking a break from the more intense stuff, which happens on the weekends, which is me just lecturing people about history and literature and mythology through the games that I play. Well, here I can just read a visual novel and then just, like, be surprised every now and again without having to think too hard about things. The only thing that's gonna suck.
This is your breather from the intense content.
Yeah, yeah, dude. Because like when I was doing Nier, like I did a fucking 5-hour recap of like when I started Automata. I'm like, all right, let's go quickly. Here's everything that happens in Drakengard 3. Here's everything that happens in Drakengard 1. Here's everything that happened in Nier Replicant. Now let's start Automata, and I finished Automata in like 4 hours or some shit. No. like if you go to YouTube right now, if you look up that playthrough, the first stream was 9 hours. It was a 9 hour long stream, and 5 hours were me talking about what the fuck is going on in this world. I was like, I don't even remember how long, like when Automata said in the future, it's in like the year 2700 or some shit. Like that's like from Near Replicant. Like that's all I know. And then we played through it, and I was super disappointed, and it sucked. But anyway, that's beside the point. But yeah, there's a little more lax. That's for sure, at least compared to that. When we get to other games though, like when I start maybe like Super Robot Wars again, when I play through another one of those, like that's just gonna be me reading like crazy. And I don't know how the fuck I'm gonna do it. I hope my throat doesn't die, because I have to voice act the whole thing.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's gonna be something, but we'll get to that later. For now, we'll continue with more God of War next week and more Hypnospace. I'll try to get Hypnospace out of the way soon. I'm not gonna try to rush through it, but that's also just me reading a lot. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard of that game, but it's just you going through an old school internet, and it's just me reading like everything. So I'll try to get through that, and then we can finally start chapter 4 of Higurashi, which is gonna be Higurashi Himatsubushi.
Yep.
And then we can start the Answers arc, where we play as Shion for the first time.
Which will be interesting.
I don't know how the fuck that's gonna happen. I don't know if that's just gonna be like the flip side of what happens in chapter 1. If we get to see like the Parent Trap situation when they swap places, we'll be playing as Shion. All of a sudden, the Mion sprite comes on screen. I don't fucking know, dude. But either way,